Welcome back, everybody, to Late Night at the Movies, episode 44, Halloween. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Late Night Chat Network, your first stop for pop culture talk. Nothing to do with shop, like some people say around here, JT. It's not your first. I have to bring back the jokes because I butchered the intro the first time. That's right. That's how I do it. That's how I do it. It's still funny the second time. Whatever you guys have heard out there, this isn't your first stop for any type of shop or any of that kind of nonsense, as our co-host GT here says when he butchers the slogan.
Yet.
But anyways, welcome back, everybody, to Late Night at the Movies. I'm joining here today with our co-host JT, aka Creeper in the Bushes over there. What's going on, Jay?
What's going on, bro?
And Julie. What's happening,
hey,
Julie?
Buddy.
Thanks for joining us. Once again, the fourth seat normally occupied by Max. Apparently, he'll be out for the month of October because he's a big pussy and is afraid of watching scary movies. He was like, guys, I'm busy, but also I don't like scary movies, so I'm going to exit the show for the month of October. Yeah. Currently, he's watching Megalopolis, I think, for the fourth time right now. So, I mean, that's what he's up to tonight.
Jesus.
But we do probably have a show coming with that, discussing that film. So the fact that I teased it last episode that he wasn't able to join us and he has a lot to say, me and Jay might be actually putting out an episode with him at some point in November when he is back in regards to that film, which is slowly becoming a cult classic amongst people in the know out there. So all you guys that were calling it Megaflopolis, think again. Watch out, guys. Right, Jay?
That's right, buddy.
So stay tuned for all that. And Christine also, who was just on with us last episode, we extended the invite for her to continue throughout spooky season, but she wasn't able to make it today for today's show. But stay tuned. We might be putting out an impromptu episode for the next one of us talking about the new Terrifier 3, because we're a big fan of the Terrifier franchise. We're actually going to go watch it tomorrow after this recording. So by the time this episode is out, we'll have watched the third movie. So we might do like a little quick kind of like little recap of that film and put it out for you guys. So you'll have a new episode every week this month of Late Night at the Movies, if that happens, because then we're bringing it back the week of October 31st there on Halloween. We'll have Julie's pick, which we'll announce at the end of this episode, coming out on Halloween night for you guys. So stay tuned for that. A lot of good stuff coming. So, yeah. All right. So my pick from last episode, I announced, of course, a bit on the nose, but I had to pick it. I had to go with Halloween. This is the film from John Carpenter, of course. 1978. It originally came out, a classic amongst like horror films, slasher films, Halloween films for that matter, as far as I'm concerned. And it spawned a franchise of 13 films now. And that I ended up watching the last few days. I ended up watching all 13 movies the last few days because I had nothing to do this long weekend for Thanksgiving here in Canada. So where we celebrate Thanksgiving this weekend. So I had a lot of time on my hands. So I actually ended up watching all 13 films within the span of 3 days, guys. So yeah, I'm a little crazy here. So after watching all that.
Little crazy, bro. I mean, I had nothing to do either, and I didn't watch 13 films.
Dedication, bro. Dedication. But of course, we are here to talk about the most of all, though, the first original 1978 film by John Carpenter. In my opinion, the best. I'll just spoil it right there because I am going to give a power ranking later in the episode, guys, for these films. But very, Very often the original is the best, though, usually where everything kind of originated from, let's be honest. I mean, especially if it's something you've lived with as long as I have. And yeah, as I mentioned, this was done in 1978, directed by John Carpenter, who also co-wrote it with Deborah Hill. Stars Donald Pleasance, Jamie Lee Curtis, amongst the biggest names in this film. Tony Moran, who I believe is the actual guy who played Michael Myers, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's his name. Yeah, and there's been many different Michael Myers over the years as well that have played him. But the reason I want to pick this movie is because, yeah, it is Halloween. It is spooky month. And out of all the slashers, all the slasher films, there's people that are, I feel like, or horror films for that matter. There's people that are Freddy guys, people that are Jason guys. And, these are the big three kind of franchises, I would say, out of these type of films from back then. And then there's the people that are the Michael Myers people. And that's me. And I've always loved Freddy, don't get me wrong. We actually have done Nightmare on Elm Street, the original one, the last time Christine was on Late Night at the Movies, like 2 years ago, when, before we took that year off of doing the show and rebranding it and coming back with hosts, and Max and everybody else that's been on the show. But she used to come on every Halloween. We've done Nightmare on Elm Street before, so go back and check the feed if you guys want to listen to that conversation. It was me, JT, and Christine for that one. That was a really good watch on that one. And if I know if JT had his pick this month, he probably would have went with Jason, because I think he's a Jason guy over there. So there you go. I mean, those are the big ones, right? So for me, it's always been about Michael Myers. I remember when I was younger, we had this movie, I think like on a videotape. I think my mom recorded it at some point. She was a big fan of this first film. I think she recorded it on a videotape, or I had a videotape from somewhere that had this on. This is back when you actually were able to record things off the television, guys. I don't know if anybody out there remembers that with the VCR and the tapes. And for whatever reason, I cannot tell you why or how, for years, when I went to see this movie and watch it on that tape, the ending, I don't know if the tape ran out or someone changed the channel. The ending of this film, for a long ass time, when, I was probably almost a teenager by the time I finally watched this. I thought the ending of this movie ended with that terrifying closet scene where he's struggling to get in the closet and he's coming to attack her, and she stabs him in the eye with the coat hanger. And then all of a sudden the tape would just end. And I thought that was the ending of the film. And I would always be like on the edge of my seat for years. I thought that was the ending of this movie. I don't know why. Like, I just had never seen it somewhere else. And then years later, I had the opportunity, maybe it was on TV or at a friend's or something. Maybe I had it on Blu-ray by then, or a new tape. I don't know, like the actual movie. But this was a recorded one. And I thought it just ended there for forever. And then if you watch the second movie, Halloween 2, it actually does takes place right after the events of Halloween 1. Like, it's like it shows you the end of the first film, and then it kind of continues into the story of the second film, and it's kind of like one interconnected movie, honestly, between the first one and the second one. But so, like, it's not like that much of a stretch, but of course, as you know, there is stuff that happens, big things that happen after that scene still, right? So when I finally saw it, it was just like, I just fell in love with this film, and even before that. But I'll always remember that, how I thought that was the ending of this movie for whatever reason. So that's like my personal experience with this movie. And then, yeah, as the years have gone on, I obviously have always looked at this film as, like, Michael Myers, man, that guy's the best in this movie. How creepy he is, like what makes him scary, the fact he doesn't talk, the way he walks, the mask, the fact that he's literally just creeping around the whole film. The music is a big part of this movie. Like, obviously it drives the suspense. Like, John Carpenter not only directed this movie, he was pulling double duty. He co-wrote it, directed, and did the music for this film, John Carpenter. So hats off to him. And I'm going to get into it with some fun facts I have later on, but he also did it under the small budget of $300,000 at the time they did this film. $300,000. You know what, though? Honestly, I always feel like the best comes out of, like, the creativity that you have to cook up as a result of not having proper resources, like where you really just have to figure things out and figure out a way how to get things done. It's like things that come out of like necessity as a result. I just think that sometimes you get the best thing, the product, as a result of that, as opposed to when you have all your resources available to you at your fingertips. Sometimes that's not a good thing. When you have everything available to you, you're not really thinking, I feel like, as creatively or out of the box, let's say, in order to kind of deliver on a product. Where I feel like movies today, with CGI and everything else and non-practical effects, they're just too well polished, if you know what I mean. So I kind of really like that. Like we call it like the charm of older films when we usually talk about them on this show in that sense, right? So but yeah, I mean, that's kind of my, and as I mentioned, it was always about Michael. But as I've gotten older and I revisit these films, honestly, it's all about Loomis for me now. Loomis is one of the best characters ever on the screen. The fact that he just descends further and further into madness throughout these movies, if you watch them, because he's been haunted by this person in his life. Like he hams it up. He delivers some great fucking speeches in this movie, which I didn't even write out the whole things, but they're like these great like monologues when he talks about his history. I have bits and parts written down. I should pull it up for later, but like he's just my favorite part about these movies every time I revisit them now. I was always about Michael, but now as I've gotten older, it's all about Loomis for me. Like just seeing him, the fact that no one listens to this guy, he's like a raving lunatic. He literally tells them, this guy is evil, personified. Like, this guy is evil. You don't know what you're messing with. Like, please believe me. Here's my gun. Like, he just pulls out a gun. Like, he's running around in a trench coat with a revolver, and he's a doctor. And meanwhile, he's like, he just,
I don't know whether to tell if he's a doctor or a cop in this
right?
one either. Like he's telling the cop what to do, for fuck's sakes.
Right. That's what's just so great about it for me. Like I love Donald Pleasance in these movies, and he loved doing these films. And his last movie actually was Halloween 6. He did the 6th film. He did every one but the 3rd one, which we'll talk about later, is its own thing. They tried to go away from Michael Myers for the 3rd film for whatever reason. And then he came back with the 4th film, which brought him back. But Donald Pleasance was in 5 of the 6 movies that had Michael Myers in it, the first 6 films in a 13-film franchise at this point. And he's even been brought back in other movies through audio, and like now, like the whole CGI where they kind of they insert dead people in films, which I know some people don't like. They just did that in one of the more recent Halloweens. They had like a moment with him where it's not really him, obviously. They just kind of brought him back in that sense. So but here, let's start off with Julie, because I know Julie had mentioned that no, go ahead. If you're gonna shit on it, go ahead. No, it's okay.
I think you should talk to JP first.
Why? This is not the point of the show. You can give your take. So you had mentioned you're not a big fan of horror in general, these type of movies, and nor have you ever watched them. But go ahead. Oh, wow, Mayor of Haterville.
I want to call it. Shit on it. Oh, we got a Max in the building. All right,
let's get right into it, I guess.
Constructive criticism is always appreciated. I just want to throw that out there. But go ahead. No,
that's you know what, and I know it's coming for me next week. Don't worry.
I bet
it's fine. So like to brief my intro, it's the first time I've ever seen it. I don't like slasher movies in general. Horror genre, not really my thing. Just not something that I typically steer for. So I have that as my base going into it. It's certainly a product of its time, and I take that into account for sure. I was not thrilled by it, I'll say that. But that's coming into it. We're watching it fucking 50 years after it was made. Like,
it's
but yeah, I spent the evening researching the movie to figure out why it became so commercially successful, because I did not understand it after watching it yesterday. And I was like, how this became a huge franchise, because why? So I did my research this evening.
Hey, don't step all over my fun facts, but go ahead.
No, I'm not going deep. I now have a better frame of reference for what's going on.
Sure, go ahead.
Now that that's it. That's my intro bit. That's it. We'll get into the weeds later.
Okay, fair enough. But so overall, though, not for you. Didn't enjoy it.
Uh-oh. Big question.
Did I
Ooh.
enjoy it? I don't think the plot really was engaging for me. But I did enjoy elements of filmmaking, especially now knowing it's an indie film.
Yeah.
And knowing what I know now. And I paid attention to a lot more technical stuff than I did to the plot structure necessarily.
Yeah.
Because it was lacking in stuff that I typically
look for in
am
movies.
looking for in films.
Yeah.
But
that's
I can appreciate it from a technical standpoint. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I think the filming, I don't think, to be fair, and that is, well, this is kind of stepping on one of my hot takes for later. I don't think the practical effects are very good in this movie because, again, there was no budget.
I have a hot take for that later too.
Okay.
It's not, but it's also not. It's not like a hot take, but like.
So I didn't mention this to you guys. I'm introducing a new category for this film. Okay.
Okay.
And it's only. This is only going to be specific to possibly this film, maybe others, maybe even next week.
Okay.
This is going to be like the WTF category, in the sense that in a horror movie, there are so many things where you're just like, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Like, so I've created a category to name off all the ridiculous stuff that does not make sense in this movie, because it is a horror film, and these stories normally are not driven by a very strong plot, to Julie's point, but it's more based off of the character itself, the horror elements of the movie, and there's a loose thread of a plot throughout where it's just like, yeah, it's very malleable, because as the series goes on, there's 5 different timelines of this film. They've rebooted it four times, I think, at this point. And there's all these kind of diverging timelines that exist, where it's like Jamie Lee exists in 3 different timelines of the film where they all ended at certain points, yet she's in this one and the other one. And again, it doesn't need to make sense. And that's where kind of some of the beauty of these horror franchises that have gone on for 10 plus movies are, because they get so bad at a certain point that sometimes studios just pick up the scripts for these things and they pump out the biggest piece of crap that they can with the smallest budget that they can, just to save the franchise, in the sense we have to put a movie out or else we're going to lose the rights to this. So there is lots of films within horror franchises that exist for that very reason. And I think Blumhouse currently owns the rights to Halloween. They just did the last trilogy, and they are actually going to be doing a show, I believe I heard it, because they're also doing a show of Jason, which is the Crystal Lake show. And then they're also going to be doing, I believe, a Halloween show, I heard as well. I don't know the current status on that, but I had heard that. Jay, do you know anything about that?
Right? Am I right about them? When they do that, they buy the rights to keep the name, right?
That's right.
Like that copyrighted name or copywritten name,
right,
or whatever.
So Blumhouse
name, like Halloween,
exactly. So Blumhouse currently owns that, which, other than A24, pretty much is the biggest horror producer at this point.
Films. Shudder's is just a streaming site for those things.
Streaming site, yeah. They do their own original movies as well, though. So, but I wouldn't say that they get as much views, obviously, on Shudder as they do through Blumhouse's films and A24, right? So I think A24 is a special brand of horror. I would say is more psychological. A lot of their films, and Blumhouse is boogeyman, ghost films, and slashers and this kind of stuff. Right? Yeah, no, that's a good take though, Julie. No disrespect, Mayor of Haterville there. No, that's okay. That's, you explained yourself. As long as you can explain yourself well enough, you're not just shitting on it to shit on it. But I'm sure you will later on. There's certain aspects you said we'll get into the weeds, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned about the plot, before we go to Jay, the plot of this film is basically Michael Myers is somebody who kills his sister when he's 6. he goes to a mental ward, and then he meets Dr. Loomis, who Dr. Loomis was his doctor, who tries to like help him for 15 years, as he never shuts up about throughout this movie. He tells everybody, and he can't get through to this kid. And when he turns 21 and he's an adult, they want to move him to another facility, and he basically wants to lock him away forever because he's like, there's no helping this kid. I can't get through to him. He's evil. Let's just lock him away, throw away the key, and never let him out. So they go to transfer him at the start of this movie, after you see the flashback to him killing his sister when he's 6 years old on Halloween night. And then he basically gets free. He escapes the mental ward. He goes to Haddonfield, Illinois, where he was from. He goes to his house, and then he sees Laurie Strode, who he basically becomes infatuated with for whatever reason. In the second film, you learn that it's his sister, which is a whole other thread they never really intended to kind of involve in the first film. But back then, they didn't really think of these things before doing sequels, or they didn't know it was going to become a huge franchise like it was. So they threw this idea out at the end of the second film, which kind of muddies the waters in terms of the plot moving forward for future films down the line, because all of a sudden you find out that he's Laurie's brother, and then there's a history between these two, or a reasoning why he was after her for whatever reason to kill her, because he killed his other sister. I don't know. It gets a little messy, and some people actually think that's actually the biggest mistake that the film's ever made, was inserting that part at the end of the second film. But then it kind of just goes from there. He basically kills a bunch of people in Haddonfield on the night of Halloween, and it goes from there. And then there's sequels, and it goes all over the place from there, and all kinds of different rebrands and reboots and everything else. Jay, what do you think of this movie?
I mean, it is a product of its time, right? I mean, this is probably one of the first real sort of, I don't like to call it horror, because I mean, it's not really, for me, I don't think it's as scary as people like to believe. I think it's the music that does it, for a lot of it for me, right? If anything, it would have been the music. I would have called it maybe a thriller. Julie says a slasher film. I mean, it was really, for the time, maybe like you said, because of the budget, they maybe they didn't, I don't know. These actors are all new. Like, besides, I think this was their first movie. This is Jamie Lee Curtis's actual first movie.
Yeah.
TV shows before this, right?
Yeah.
So, so I mean, you don't have to pay a big budget. You don't have to do much and stuff like that. So you can get out. You can get off by doing stuff. Plus, there's no real gory scenes like you see in a lot of other ones, right? Yeah. This guy's got him everywhere. He's got him in the box.
I got him in the bush.
In the bushes.
Don't know about that. So
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the movie. I always enjoy horror movies. I told you, I grew up on them.
Yeah, you've seen this before. Unlike Julie, you've seen this movie before, right?
I've seen it a few times. I mean, it's not one that I would say that sticks to me as much as maybe it relates. It can stick to you and relate to you, and or like you said, you said your mom had recorded it for you, so that's something that attaches you to this film too, right? And maybe even the rest of them, which is a cool thing. I mean,
it's just scary, man. This guy is a scary figure. Like, when you used to go to like those things that, even the things where like you go to like Halloween Haunt and stuff like that, there's always a room that's playing this music. That's
what gets
and people would be wearing the mask. Like, he's the scariest to me. Like, he was just creepy. And there's been all these opportunities I've had throughout my life where we've either scared people with that mask, or I've been scared by people with that mask. And then like there's a Halloween Haunt stuff where they walk around with that mask. There's a Michael Myers and those type of like walkthroughs that you do. So like the music is chilling. Yeah, it all works for me. I actually do think it's a horror. I think it's scary, man. This guy's a scary guy. This Michael Myers. And also there's no explanation until later on in the movies, which is actually the thing I hate most about the movies, is when they try to make sense of what makes this guy who he is. He's just super strong for no reason. Like he's just a crazy guy that is unstoppable. You don't need to explain it. Like,
hasn't moved for 15 years and has impossible strength.
Yeah.
But most creepers in that time and serial killers that time didn't do that. They didn't run around, and they didn't have to chase people. I think the only one was Freddy, really.
But to
they
that
came
point,
in.
But to that point, Jay, those guys are both dead. Jason's dead. Freddy's dead. He is not dead, Michael Myers. He is alive, and yet he just keeps
Sure,
going.
Jason is the first
Fucking
one.
won't die.
Yeah, but that's what always made. That's the other reason why I've always liked Michael Myers is that there's that unexplainable element of like why he's like able to take the amount of pain he goes through in these films and then keep coming back because, you know, and they explore that throughout some of the sequels. Sometimes to a degree where I'm not really happy with it because I'm like, whenever there's like a supernatural element that's introduced, I feel like it loses it for me because I'm like, yeah, you know, I like them trying to attempt to explain why he is the way he is, but there's a mysteriousness of it that actually works for me where you don't know. Like it's like with the Joker's origin, where they continuously try to tell the origin, or there's all these different origins for him. The thing that's good about that villain is I feel like, again, he's just evil because he's evil. Like you don't need to have an explanation sometimes, right? So, but like, so for me, that really works for Michael Myers as a person as well, like in these, as an entity or whatever in these films, right? Because I think the best theory about that is that he's the devil. The devil is controlling him. I think that's I think the best explanation you can give is that that whole evil in his eyes that that Loomis refers to is Satan essentially. Like I think the devil took him over when he was 6, and I think he just never left. And I feel like we'll get into it about what the WTF moments of this film where it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, the driving is a big one. I don't know what the hell he's doing driving around.
No shit, bro. I was wondering that.
That's what's so funny.
Better, right?
I love it.
Your doctor said
This is why is this guy driving? He doesn't even know where he's driving.
right?
I don't know. So this is one of those movies again. I've seen every Halloween for so many years. Like it's this time of year, so I watch it. And I've only done two watch throughs of all the films. I did it before 2018 when the first 10 movies were out before the new trilogy, and I did it again this past weekend. But it's one of those movies where I don't know if you guys have experienced this. You watch a movie so many times, at a certain point, you start kind of noticing different things, picking apart different things, focusing on different aspects of the film because you kind of know everything else. So you got to kind of find things to make it interesting for yourself each time you revisit it. So that's why as the years have gone on, I laugh and have a good time over the Loomis stuff. And I really have a good time over like just the stupidness of some of the elements of this movie, like him driving the car, which I think is fantastic. So.
That's I think I related more to a psychological horror than an actual horror. Maybe the second one and the third one, you know, got a little bit more into detail, right? But I mean, yeah, that's probably why I feel like it myself. I mean, I really need something to scare me to
Sure
consider it like a horror. And you know, it's very, I've been watching them from too young of an age to even get, you know, jumpy at any part, right? So
yeah, you just reminded me of a movie I had to add to my pairings.
Let's be clear though, this isn't a movie that scares me now. I do find certain scenes creepy.
Obviously.
There's certain elements of it that are creepy, but I'm not like, you know, like it's not hard to watch the television while I'm watching it or something like that. Or I'm not walking away.
Looking through his fingers.
I'm not walking away from the film like a psychological one, like thinking about a bunch of crazy crap because I just watched something that like twisted. That's what I mean. I prefer those films too, to your point, Jay. You know, I just like it all when it comes to like these even cheesy horrors, right? I'll give anything a chance like that.
I mean, even if you think about it, they're not using there might have been a handful. I don't even think there was really any swear words in it. Yeah, it was still rated an R movie. If you actually listen to that's the things I was picking apart too, right? Like little things, like something stupid like that they didn't say anything. You know, I mean, they did every classic, you know, horror movie. How it starts off is, you know, with sex and fucking kill, right?
But that's the thing too, Jay. You got to remember, like you're saying it as it's a trope now, but in 1978, that wasn't the case, right? This is
I know we're probably like one of the first of the big starting of Halloween, because
Not-
I don't think prior to that it was scary movies were a thing, right?
Not only that, obviously it's in the middle of the whole the slasher genre type stuff too. But not only that, like there wasn't any movies on Halloween at this time. That's what's crazy about this. Like, it's such a genius idea in a way. You think and I'm gonna call it genius because they never really thought to do any scary films based around the holiday of Halloween up to this point. Like that was a big reason why this movie was successful. I don't know if you saw that, Julie, in your notes, but apparently that's the things you had looked up. But apparently that was one of the main reasons why this was such a big deal, is because John Carpenter came up with the idea that at first they were going to call this the Babysit Murders. That was the original name of this film. Because
Was it a book first originally?
Babysitter Murders. No, I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe. I don't know. It was called the Babysitter Murders, the film originally. It was supposed to detail this guy that went around and killed all these babysitters. They even had a different mask and everything before they picked this one. Like this was like, like real fly by night, like kind of decisions. Like it was like, what I mean? Like they're really just making this up on the fly, right? A lot of this shit. So then they were calling it the Babysitter Murders, I think originally, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And then it became Halloween because John Carpenter wanted to base it around Halloween as an aspect of the film, which really wasn't done as a scary aspect up to that point. So like, if you think about it, the idea of a killer that comes back on the night of Halloween to take out his revenge on people, it's actually a really sick idea for a movie if you think of it in that sense. Like the fact that this guy went away to a mental ward for 15 years of his life and then he breaks out on the night of Halloween to go and kill a bunch of people. Just that as a tagline for this film. I think if you told somebody that, they would be like, wow, that sounds interesting. I want to, like, at least for me, like that sounds like a good film. Like if you give me that idea just based on that. So I think that's kind of like a cool kind of aspect to this. And it's 1978, right? Like as well, right?
I think it was that it went from that baby boomer genre of filmmaking, like in the 60s and early 70s, into I think they were transitioning into like a Gen X, and how do you market movies and stuff to a different generation, right? And I think that in the 70s and late 70s and early 80s was a big it was a big horror movie time, right? Like I mean, yes, it's coming back now again, but it disappeared for a while, right? I mean, it's always been there. I mean, you'll see Halloween, you'll see, and I know you, Nico, you watch you're a big avid horror movie fan, so you watch movies every day. Every day of this month of Halloween, of October. So I understand how you're still a big fan, but there isn't a lot of people that are, man, anymore, which is weird. And I always, like, I have grown buddies like our age, Sneaks, and they're scared to even watch this. I mean, the only thing, like I said to myself, the only thing I found scary about this was the actual piano. That always makes me give me the creeps. Even if I hear it while I'm trying to fall asleep, it's stuck in my fucking head. It's been stuck in my head this week.
Like I said, that is one of the creepiest elements about this movie. I think the music is a huge part of this movie. You take away the music of this film, it's not as good. It's barely
horror films, right? Good horror films have a good
but John Carpenter, though, the music he did for this film is classic. Like it is great. Like even like how it amps up, because there's like a bunch of different
it's slowly
sequences that he does where dun 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 dun. And then it goes ding 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 ding. You have that he's just probably just doing it with like one key or whatever. Like it just
so like they try to tease you at certain parts, right? Like it's gonna be something right away, then nothing turns out, right?
My favorite is the one where he's like when he goes and looks out on the lawn and he's gone, and there's like a mysterious like tingle. I don't know how to describe it. There's like
it's like a stinger.
Yeah. That's my favorite. It's whenever he look somewhere and, like you said, you're expecting something, and then they do like a disappearing sound of some sort.
He's gone.
Like,
yeah,
like God, he vanished, right? Yeah, that's classic to me, man. Like I love that stuff. So I mean, that's another big part of this movie. I think one, it's the character. Two, it's the music. I think music, character, even probably, because without the music, it wouldn't be as suspenseful. I feel like
it sets the tone, bro.
So Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Michael Myers, aka the Shape, aka the Boogeyman. He was known as the Shape as the series had gone on. A couple of fun facts here. A movie was made, as I mentioned, for $300,000. It grossed $47 million in the US and $23 million internationally. This is huge at this point. $70 million worldwide. It made this film at the time of release, made on a $300,000 budget.
On a box off, like just on a weekend?
No, of the whole time it was in theaters, 70 million worldwide.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Just for the time that's in
in
theaters.
1978. In
No
1978.
wonder they didn't want to fucking give up the rights, bro.
So, but John Carpenter he never meant for there to be like another film after this. He was involved in writing and doing the music and stuff in the second movie. He didn't direct it, but this is the only one he has that level of involvement in, is this film, the first one. So like he never intended for this to become a huge franchise, but like so many of these horror movies, it's like the same thing with Wes Craven and Nightmare on Elm Street. That becomes a big hit. He revisits it at certain points throughout the series, but he never, again, he just wanted to do that and then he was out. Like, so many of these horror franchises are really, the greatness exists in the first film because the vision of the director that we know who delivered it the first time around. They're basically just all trying to reinterpret that same story that the guy set up in the
And
first film, right?
a lot of them, a lot of good ones, right? Like this are open. They leave it open, really, to in case anybody wants to take over, whatever. Because they really did leave an open ending to this one too, as well,
Yeah.
right? I mean, for
Yeah.
sure, right? So
yeah, and I think like smartly, like when he was involved with the writing, because him and Deborah Hill did write the second film, like they were involved with the writing of the second film, even though he didn't intend for it to continue. What's that?
he didn't need to make any more money off this name at that point.
He basically they continued the story without skipping a beat, as I mentioned previously. So like it just continues. Like as soon as he leaves on the lawn and disappears, you see Loomis going and searching for him with the cops at the start of the second movie. So, and then it kind of goes from there, right? And then Laurie ends up in the hospital, and then there's like a whole storyline of him going to the hospital to get Laurie, and another showdown at the end with Loomis and her and him again at the end of the second film. It kind of goes back around to the same thing every movie. At the end, Loomis comes out of nowhere with a gun.
Disappears, disappears to Halloween.
He pursues him throughout the whole evening of Halloween or whatever in each film. And then they track him down by the end of the movie. And then there's a showdown of sorts and he gets away and Loomis survives. And it kind of just keeps going like that. Right. And then the sixth film, when Loomis died, he died 8 months before the release of the last film. And that was his last acting credit. And at the end of the sixth movie, they had an alternate ending, but then they switched it out where they left something of Loomis's on the ground. I forgot what it was. And they left Michael's mask and it kind of left it up in the air. And you hear Loomis screaming in the background. So you don't know what happened to Loomis. You don't know what happened to Michael in the end. He goes in for the final showdown and they scrapped the other ending, I guess, when he died. And they went with this other ending. We kind of left it open-ended as to Loomis's fate at the end, because it kind of seemed like I think Loomis was going to die. I didn't even look into what the alternate ending was. He was supposed to die, I feel like, when he went back in and faced Michael in this movie, because he was getting older and I think he was kind of done with the movie. He wasn't even going to come back originally. But then he came back because he liked the script, and then they left it open-ended where he may have died, he may not have. But you hear Loomis yelling in the background as he faces off against Michael. So it gives you the you might think that he died, right? So I like how they kind of left it for him as a legacy of sorts to him.
Loomis is like the Elmer Fudd of this fucking franchise. Just running around trying to catch fucking Michael Myers as Bugs Bunny.
Yeah. Michael Myers apparently made the guy who played Michael Myers apparently made $20 a day filming this. They filmed it for a total of 3 weeks. I think it was 20 days they filmed this movie in.
Wow.
20 days, which is pretty impressive, I think.
Yeah, biggest part of the story, and he makes less than the people that are dying. Fuck.
One of the best facts, which I already had known this previously, was that the mask was a Captain Kirk mask that they basically painted. They bought it for $1.29 from a costume shop, and they repurposed it. They painted it white. They took off the sideburns that were on it. They dyed the hair. They basically just did all this stuff to this cheap mask. And the best part about this story is this is the best mask by far out of all of the movies, the way it looks. And they've recreated it so many times, and they've never been able to recreate it to look exactly like this. After the movie was done, they threw this friggin' mask away like idiots. They didn't hold on to it. They threw it away, and I don't know how or why, but they can't recreate the damn thing. Apparently, they don't have any of these masks anymore. I guess they couldn't find one, and every mask looks horrible compared to this one. Like, there's so many bad masks. There's a certain point in like the 5th or 6th movie, the mask is like fatter than the guy's neck. I don't know what's going on. It's like fanning out over his face. Like, it looks terrible in some of these movies. Some movies, they do a pretty good job, but never as good as this one, which is basically a Captain Kirk mask that they just painted.
I was gonna say I'm looking at it, right? Like, I'm looking at the picture and I'm going, how the fuck? Maybe that's why there is a smirk in the one of them. No. I mean, I can't. I'm looking at it. I'm going, how is that cat? How is that? Like, I mean, I've seen young photos of William Shatner. That's not it, bro.
Well, that's what it was. It was a William Shatner mask, and they basically and the reason they kept this one, because they had another clown mask that they originally were going to use, and they put like some red hair on it, and they said it was terrifying looking, and it didn't really play well. They thought this one was better because of the lifelessness of the eyes, like basically like the look that it gave when he put the mask on, like the cheap $1.29 mask, how it just looked like a blank stare, which is basically the whole thing about the devil's eyes that Loomis goes on about, the blanks, the fact that there's nothing there, like, right. And the reason that John Carpenter came up with this idea is because he went on a trip to when he was in school. They went, for whatever reason, a trip to like a mental ward. Like, I don't know if it was like a school trip of some sort, or I don't know the full details as to why he went on this trip, but he went to
to the mental ward.
So he went to
the
mental hospital, and he saw somebody there that had like a lifelessness kind of look to him, and it scared the shit out of him, and that stuck with him. And that's why he created this character in this movie, because he never forgot like that moment of seeing that, like, that somebody that looked like they just weren't all there, and that there was nothing inside, right? Like, no, so nothing upstairs, right? So that's kind of interesting in that aspect too. Jamie Lee Curtis, her mother was Janet Leigh, who was in Psycho. And John Carpenter, she was the woman in Psycho. John Carpenter basically did this as a tribute to that film. He kind of cast her in this movie, like you said, her debut. This is a big deal apparently at the time, because everyone was talking about it, because the fact that it was the woman from Psycho's daughter that was in this movie. So Jamie Lee actually had some pull as a result of that going into this film, that people wanted to actually go check this out, because they're like, oh, it's Janet Leigh's daughter, right? So it's kind of cool. And the character Dr. Sam Loomis is based on the Dr. Sam. It's based on a character, Sam Loomis, from the movie Psycho as well. That's, again, a little nod of the hat from Carpenter.
I thought so. And that's what I mean. I don't think there was really any horror movies in between that and this, like, that really stand out. If you could think of one that happened between Psycho and this, there wasn't really many, right?
When was Nightmare on Elm Street? When was Nightmare on Elm Street?
Oh, it was 80 or 81.
81,
yeah.
I think.
That's when Jason and all that shit came out in the 80s. Yeah, this was the earliest one.
This precedes Jason and Nightmare on Elm Street, I'm pretty certain, right?
It does, yeah. But I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre was before this.
Oh, of course. Yeah, that's the big one.
And there was one other big one that was before this.
Psycho.
Between Psycho and this, there was another big one, and I was just reading it. Hang on a second.
That's weird. I can't think. I'm trying to think. I mean, but I totally thought I didn't think of there's got to be something. I'm trying to think as I'm looking through, what to relate it to.
The Exorcist? No, that was. The Exorcist.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
that was in 73. Black Christmas. That was the other one.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah, that one's good. Yeah. So
that was the other one that had a lot of mentions.
Black Christmas is a Canadian film. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Done by the same person who made. Get this.
Oh yeah, the birds come out.
Oh,
Or was
that's
it
before
Birds is
as
old.
well. It's black and white.
Cycle?
Yeah. That's all Hitchcock black and white stuff, right? Of
Yeah.
course, it was
Yeah.
first. But Psycho was the big one, I think, compared to Birds was good too. I've watched the Birds, but no, but the same director or the same guy who did Black Christmas is also the guy that did my other favorite Christmas movie, A Christmas Story. He's the same guy.
Oh shit!
Two totally different films.
Did it quote that one? No,
Yeah.
not National Lampoon, right? The other one.
No, Christmas Story, not National Lampoon. My other favorite Christmas movie. Yeah.
the rifle. You're gonna shoot your eye out with that.
Yeah, that's right.
That's another one too. The Omen came out in '76.
Oh, Damien. Yeah. Damien.
Oh, yeah, Rosemary's Baby,
Rosemary's
probably.
Baby too. Yeah. So there's a few, but like more supernatural stuff. Not really.
Yeah.
To JT's point though about the slasher movies that came after this movie, even though apparently John Carpenter and Deborah Hill have said this was never their intentions, really kind of started creating the whole virginity theme of a central character as well. There's a lot of sexual kind of undertones throughout this film. And the way they looked at it, apparently John Carpenter was just like all the other people were too busy having sex, and that's why they got killed, because they were trying to have sex and she wasn't. And it just kind of became a trope moving forward, like where if people had sex in a movie, especially like in the Jason movies, they would die 2 seconds later, right? So like to your point, Jay, that kind of started here, like as far as like, yeah, which was never their intention.
Sort of thing.
Yeah.
But let me ask you something. Who'd you say that they said in the following films was the sister?
Jamie Lee Curtis is the sister of Michael Myers.
See, because then I have something about that. Then okay, it doesn't make sense to me.
Well, we can get to the questions later with that.
That's funny.
Yeah.
There'll be something there.
But yeah, that's pretty much the facts that I had about the film. Just a couple of comments here I had. I like how the kill was done through the masks, like the POV at the start of this movie. I really thought that was pretty cool for the time.
I think they all had to do, like every besides the one you were looking from through his mask, it was all done from POV, whether it be the mask, whether it be the sheet. You know what I mean?
The whole thing of him, like as a kid doing that, like to kind of start the movie, I thought that was kind of like, because like if you think about it, even like a fact that the 6-year-old killed his sister is pretty crazy at the start of the movie, and that's like the opening 2 minutes of the film.
And he had like a dead look in his face at that point. That was fucking hilarious, to be honest with you.
I love the intro with the pumpkin glowing as the music's going at the start, which became an ongoing theme of the films moving forward. Lots of people kind of played on that whole thing with the pumpkin and the music. Like there's even other movies where the pumpkin's like rotting as it's going on, or even in the new Halloween trilogy, the Danny McBride one, when they did the Blumhouse movies, they actually have like the pumpkin like smashed and like shriveled up, and it actually regenerates, you know what I mean, like because they're bringing Halloween back essentially, like so like they kind of got creative with that at the start of some of the films, which I kind of like that whole element of the theme of the pumpkin at the start with the credits that they kind of did. So they played
even the smile changes. It's like a Batman thing. Hey, the smiles change, like the cape fucking symbol changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of got like its own theme. Then when they come up, when they come up with a franchise like this, you have to do what's the most thing that relates with Halloween is a pumpkin, right? And that smile, right? I mean, yeah. So that was pretty cool.
Another note I made here about like what makes Michael Myers, scary to me here is, again, he doesn't talk. He wears that mask. The fact that he walks and he can catch up to anybody. He's not running. This guy just constantly is walking, and yet he can always catch up to you for whatever reason.
He drives.
The breathing, that's something that the other films don't do as much as this original. His breathing is very unsettling in a lot of these scenes for me, like how heavy he's breathing. Like it even kind of sounds weird at some points. Like he's kind of like, you know what I mean? Like he's like,
because he's speed walking to get to everybody.
Yeah, and he's got his microphone underneath his mask. This is poor microphone, right? So that's the problem. Have you ever tried to breathe in one of those masks?
Yeah, that's true. Those latex masks, those are bad.
It up. And that's like probably a 10-pound latex one back in the 70s.
Good point.
whole episode, the whole movie. Sorry.
The fact that he creeps around, like that's my favorite element about these films. That the fucking fact that he creeps around.
I knew.
You guys want to take a guess at the death count for this movie?
4.
Julie?
5?
5 people and a dog. You got it though. 5
And a dog.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't throw in animals, okay? So I was gonna say.
So it's the
I think
sister. It's the sister at the start. The mechanic that he steals his costume from.
Yeah, I forgot
Annie's boyfriend and the other friend. I forgot her name. The 2 friends and the guy that she's
Yeah, what the fuck is her name? Linda.
Yeah,
Linda, the one that he left posing on the bed.
Yeah, so he kills all 3 with the tombstone. Yeah, that's right. The Julia, the sister's tombstone. Yeah, that he recreates that whole scene. Yeah. All right. Well, that's my main comments about it. Anything else from you guys before we get into scenes, though? I know I talked a lot, but it's my pick, so that's for you guys. I had to get my thoughts off. It's my pick.
No, I mean, you pretty much nailed everything, but I
did research for this, guys.
Because you've already watched it a million times, so you don't even need to watch it. You just needed to do the research, to be honest with you. You had it in the background while he was Googling some research. That's what he was doing. But I'll tell you, I'll tell you right now, that movie, that makes sense about the I forgot about that. She's related to the lady from the Psycho, right? From Psycho. Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably made it so that's why there was less of her having to take off her clothes in this movie. She had a little bit more.
Well, listen, we get Jamie Lee Curtis topless in Trading Places, and that was well worth it.
You go from I think she was in Charlie's Angels for a few episodes. You go from that to her having get naked and things. She would have went in a whole different career path. I'm pretty sure.
I think Trading Places did a lot for her career. When she shows up as the hooker in that movie, where she's the prostitute in Trading Places, it's like as a kid when I saw that, that was like the '80s when you get unintentional boobs in films. You're just watching a movie and it's just like, well, there's some boobs all of a sudden. Like they just threw it in, right? Like it wasn't like it would be like in places where you would least expect it.
Yeah. I think it's because they didn't want to edit it out. They didn't want to reshoot the scene, so they just left it in there.
No, she looks great in that movie. I mean, she's like 20 something in that film though, but yeah, she looks awesome in that. Even when she did the dance in True Lies, when she did the sexy stripper dance for Arnold's there, that was pretty good too. And she does that in that film too. Jamie Lee Curtis, not a woman I thought I'd be super attractive to, but she's looked great in a lot of films actually. I will say that I don't really like the short hair sometimes though, but she pulls it off.
She must have been young in this one. I don't know her actual age in this one as an actress, but yeah, she must have been young because she was she was at least in the prime of her and the way they were dressing in the 70s. You gotta love it, man. That with the tops all the way halfway down, trying to show nobody's wearing bras. It was great, man. It was good times. No, those are the good things about those. 70s,
always goes back to the same level of commentary.
She was 20.
There you go. She was 20.
She was 20.
It's legal.
Are we still in what likes, dislikes, and what it did right and wrong?
Yeah. Go ahead. For me, like I said, I don't really have anything to say in terms of the dislikes because that's more of like the WTF commentary I'll say about the ridiculousness of some of the stuff. But I like all the imperfections and all in this film, like in that sense. I think it's the perfect mixture of, like I said, low budget, resourceful type of stuff they had to pull together. So for me, it stood the test of time. But yeah, go ahead. What do you dislike about this film? Because I know you didn't love it. You said
the notes that I wrote in here. It's not even a lot of that, but like the notes I have here is that besides Dr. Loomis, Jamie Lee is the only decent actor in the entire fucking movie. And I can see why it's important to you as a fan of the genre. And that I was impressed by knowing now that it was so low budget, like the cinematography and like these choreographed shooting moments where they kind of like are panning across, they go to the side, he wasn't in frame, they come back, he's in frame, they swing back again and he's gone. Like these choreographed one shots were done really well. Like that was really well thought out when they were shooting. And that I think it's not like unique. I mean, maybe it was unique at the time, but no, I feel like maybe not. But still, I like that it more relied on like suspensefulness and tension to do the work of the horror element rather than the body horror and the gore shit that is like so much more popularized maybe now. But
I think
that yeah.
like after this, it became more popular because
even in this franchise, there's ones that are way more brutal in terms of like the gory moments in it. Like this is tame compared to where they go with this, guys.
would those pan shots that you're talking about, Julie, do something if they thought about that? Would it save? Would be part of saving a budget by doing, instead of having to use 3 different takes to do that? Would that be something that, because they just pan like with the camera, like you said,
Could have been like they could have been saving on actual film roll, but I think it's it's proper planning.
Yeah, like cost efficient.
Yeah,
I actually know a bit about that too. Apparently, they did get a special camera for this film. Like that's probably one of the things they spent most of their money on. Julie's right in the sense that even to kind of get the length of the shot that they did with him, like rolling down the street or getting him in view with the bushes, like from far away, they apparently were using some camera which was really good at that period of time to get some of those long shots. I know about what you're saying about how they were like panning and going back and forth at certain scenes, but I think even to get that much in a frame, like apparently these cameras were, it was a like really good camera.
Wide.
Yeah, it was apparently like I listened to a podcast where they talked about behind the scenes about this, and they mentioned the type of camera that they use for this. I don't really know too much about cameras, but they said like for the time, the wide view angle of some of the shots that they did in this film was impressive. Apparently, like they just
Panaglide.
Yeah.
Panaglide, a clone of a Steadicam, and then new camera that allowed filmmakers to move around spaces smoothly.
Yeah.
Okay, so essentially they were able to film handheld a lot more smoothly. It's like having a gimbal, more or less. Like a very well stabilized. I think that's what they're saying here anyway. Like a Steadicam is like a gimbal, so it keeps it from having camera shake if you're filming by hand. That's probably what they're talking about here. I would have to look into it more, but that's cool. They were kind of trying to yeah, that makes sense. They were spending a lot of money on that probably.
Yeah, especially with new camera at the time, right?
Right. Well, that's what it was. I think it was new technology for that time when they went and used it for this film, which if I had to guess, that's probably what they spent most of their budget on in this movie, was the way that it was the cameras, I would think, because like I said, like obviously they're using a lot of their surroundings. They're filming on location for a lot of these places. They're not paying the actors very much. Like, so it's like, I feel like the most money probably went into, probably the cameras and the fact that, and probably, maybe to get the people writing and directing it and all that kind of stuff. Cause the talent was very low budget, right? I would think in this. So
they just, introducing themselves and wanting to get themselves out there. I mean, how many of those other actresses besides Jamie Lee went on to do anything else? Right?
Well, Donald Pleasance, the other big thing that he's known for, I mean, he did a lot of like character work for TV and movies, but he also worked with John Carpenter a bunch on a lot of his other films, where that's actually a big gray area for me. I haven't really watched a lot of John Carpenter's films, which I feel like I really should, because I haven't seen too many, and I know he's got a lot of great ones like Escape from New York and stuff like that. I haven't seen a bunch of his movies, but he's gone on to do other good things other than this, and he also was Blofeld in one of the James Bond films. That's what Dr. Evil is based off of, essentially. It's Michael Myers based his impersonation of him off of Lorne Michaels from SNL, but like the voice, but the look of Blofeld is basically what the character that he plays in the James Bond movies is what he looks like, Dr. Evil. Essentially, he's got like this scar across his eye or something like that. So that's the other big thing I feel like people know Donald Pleasance from. But this is it. It's this Loomis is his legacy as far as I'm concerned. So, Julie, anything else in terms of stuff you didn't like or liked?
No, I made no other notes in that spot.
All right, so moving on to scenes now. Scenes I got for me, and I'll pass it around here. a really big scene for me is the opening scene with Loomis when he's explaining Michael to the nurse as they pull up to the mental hospital, and then they're like, and it's shot really crappily, it seems like, but they're like in pitch darkness, and all of a sudden you just see like people like roaming around the grounds of this mental hospital. Like, that's still kind of creepy to me as an opening, because you don't know really what's going on, like, because you can't really see much. And then like when Michael jumps on the car and like smashes the window and drives off with it, but like the whole like descent into the mental hospital as they're rolling up, and she's like, why are all these people like walking around? Is this normal? Like, I always thought that was a really creepy kind of element and way to kind of stage that scene, like as they kind of come in, because the whole drive in, you're basically just getting these two characters talking, and he's telling you about his history with Michael, and it's your introduction to Loomis essentially in this scene. So I really like that scene, and I've always thought that was creepy how they had all these like mental patients kind of walking around, and the fact that, you know, he jumps on the car and steals it, like, but just as they're rolling in, and you kind of see all this transpiring in the moment. I thought that's always been a scene for me that kind of stuck out. I really like that a lot. Julie?
I only wrote down 2 things, and they were both just like things that made me laugh.
Okay.
And one of them was just that the theme song follows him when the car is driving past. Like it fades in when he pulls up and it fades out when he leaves. That fucking killed me. And my other the thing that just like, I noticed it in the middle of the scene and it made me laugh so hard, is that why were they fucking with a pumpkin next to the bed?
Why not?
There was a pumpkin on the nightstand, and I was like, "What? Like,
Who,
why?"
Annie and that guy,
was,
that one they
wasn't it-
dressed up like a ghost.
It was Bob and Linda. Bob and Linda. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
the
not,
one-
not Annie.
the
Annie's the other one. Yeah,
Annie's the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ones that drove up into the house and got it for free.
Also, Annie getting stuck in the window with a dude's shirt on and her underwear was pretty funny too.
Which is basically a porn setup these days,
Yeah.
where people get stuck and stuff.
Help me! I'm stuck in the dryer, step bro. Yeah, it was that.
I did have that thought when I watched it this time.
Yeah.
Which is the first time I brought
stuck.
that. Yeah.
But she's
That was
told
funny.
poor little girl had to walk
Oh.
into that.
That's a whole porn category now.
And I was like, oh, this is gonna fucking turn into her head gets chopped off in the window or something. But I'm like, nope, it was just porn. Okay.
They're playing with your expectations though in that scene. That's
a
why
good
they're
point.
like, right?
That's a good point.
JT, how about you? Any scenes you enjoyed?
I mean, I enjoyed that, like you said, the first one. I enjoyed the last sequence there too, as well. I mean, if that was not overacting by Michael Myers, I don't know what was.
Where he got shot, you mean, and fell off of the balcony?
This was priceless, bro, for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That was priceless for me, okay?
He fell off of the balcony, you mean, after he got shot 6 times by Loomis? Yeah.
Yeah. You know, but he was taking the shots. That was the best part. First, he gets shot in the side of the head, and then he can still look at you. So I'm like, okay, what's wrong with this guy? Is he? Yeah, he is. Is he? He's probably. I felt like he was dead already, bro. That's the whole point. I know what you mean. He's not. He's just a. You know, they don't really get into that, right? But I mean, after that, you would think he'd be dead, right? But that whole sequence at that end, at the end there. But the one part that I was wondering about was that other scene. I like the scene where Jamie Lee Curtis there, and that other girl Annie are driving, and they run into their dad and her dad.
Stoned?
But okay, see, this
Were
is
they
where
smoking cigarettes or they smoking weed
See?
in the car?
That's where they were tiptoeing around it. Yeah, they weren't allowing the women to say weed. They didn't say. If you notice, the women didn't say weed in that one or cigarettes. It was a fucking weird one, bro.
The 70s.
I don't know if it's the way they wanted to come off. Yeah, you would think they'd be doing like they've already ever done the drugs, but maybe it's something the way they wanted to come off and portray it. I don't know.
And Jamie should have been dead because she was doing drugs.
You know, they're all high. Yeah, say no to drugs, right? Because you make bad decisions, right? First of all, they were driving and their dad's
I
a
thought they
cop.
were smoking a cigarette in the car.
No.
See, that's why too, because the father would have said something if it was marijuana, but
Well, she
Yes.
says he probably smelt it, or she talks about it
yeah.
They were
after.
in troubles. Girls would get in trouble sometimes. I think back then
For
too. Like I
smoking.
remember my mom used to have to hide her cigarettes.
The way
when
she was holding it, though, it was a joint. It wasn't a cig. I hear
I-
what you're saying, but yeah.
You're
Yeah, it
leaving
was
it up
fucking
to interpretation, I feel.
Yeah, right. Like as opposed to
Oh,
nowadays, where you them spark it up and hey,
I
you know,
actually think that's an interesting point that you bring up. I never looked at it that way. I've always thought it was weed. I've never thought they were smoking a cigarette.
But they never say it
Right.
outright. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
No, only the cop says it somewhere down the line to Dr. Loomis and says, "Oh yeah, just a bunch of kids out there trick or treating and some smoking weed." And that's all. He's the guy who says it, and only brings that
Mm.
part up. That's the only time I heard that. I mean, it's something that I can remember because it'll stick in my head, that word weed, right? But I was trying to figure out if that's what they were doing, right?
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be the point of it, right? But yeah, and her whole little dialogue there with her father when he's yelling, that was pretty cool. I thought that was,
It's
and
funny.
now he's shouting too after the alarm turns off, right? The break into the, when they were in there, what did they say they stole? He stole the
A
rope
mask and 2 knives and a rope.
and 2 knives, right? And but he did say the mask, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't 100% sure if he said
And
the
he
mask.
got obviously the mechanic uniform he got stole from mechanic, which has always been like the jumper suit kind of like which I even have one. I should have worn it for this show if I was gonna probably sweat my balls off.
Come on, I put my pumpkin shirt on. Where's your costume?
My Halloween episode's next week on
That's
Late Night Chat. So, but I do have the overall, like I have that suit because I've dressed as Michael Myers before. So I have the whole, I don't have the mask anymore, I don't think. But,
Shortest Michael Myers around.
so, well, there's different Michael Myers, right? So
I forgot about that part where he gets shot so many times because something funny happened. We were watching it and he got shot like 6 times or whatever. Levi was like, "What the fuck? Call this guy 51 Cent. How many fucking times is he gonna get shot?" It was really funny.
Well, in the second film, Loomis is quick to mention it like 10 times that he shot him 6 times in this because he doesn't load like a whole barrel full of bullets on him.
Yeah.
This guy, he's got a revolver, probably got a 6-shot revolver there. He empties the whole thing shooting this guy before he falls off of that thing. And then there's this whole conversation in the second movie. If he actually hit him all those times, did he miss? Like, and he keeps ranting and raving to no, I swear I shot him 6 times.
Bro, what do you think he was doing? With the way he was making those arm movements, he was dodging the bullets, bro. Who smacked him out of the way? That's what happened.
But that's what's so great, that he hits the ground off the balcony and then he turns to the Lord to see if she's okay, and he goes back and checks. He's gone.
The movie really is about Loomis's descent into madness.
It's great. No, but you see, that's my favorite part of while watching the other films, because I will get into it later when I give my power ranking of the movies, but he becomes more and more disheveled after each film. Like by the end of it, his face is burned. He's got a cane. He's totally lost it in terms of his sanity. He's drinking. Like, trust me, like it is crazy by the end of it. Like his descent into madness. It's one of those things where it's just like, who's really the evil guy at the end? Is it Michael or is it this guy? Because this guy's crazy. He's of course it's always Michael, but the fact that he's just losing it over time because he can't get through to this guy. Like, that's the thing about this character. And he does care. Like, as much as I know it seems like he's a lunatic with a gun, he cares, but he's like, there's nothing I can do for this person. He's moved on to this thing is evil. He doesn't even call it a man at one point. He's like, she says she's referred to as a man at the start by the nurse. He's like, yeah, if that's what you want to call him. Like, basically, like, he's just like, yeah, this is an evil thing, this presence. Like, he's lock this guy away, right? So anyways, my other favorite scene, of course, though, is the closet scene with him like busting in the closet. That's the whole fact that it's in a confined space is kind of scary to me. Like, if you're like claustrophobic, that's like the worst scenario.
Well, that's like a Shining thing, dude.
Yeah, like the fact that you got caught in a closet and somebody's busting through the closet. Like, good on her that she like made that weapon to like stab him in the eye like quick. quick thinking on her part. I don't even know how she pulled that off in this movie, but the fact that he's busting through the door and like, like breathing and like trying to like grab her and like swinging the knife around, like it's crazy. Like I would be scared shitless if I was in that situation. I don't even know how she pulled that off in this. And they actually make it's a callback joke that they do in H2O. There's a moment where this is the first movie where she came back in H2O. She there's a point where she opens a closet door at one point and she's like, nope, and she like closes it again. She's like, I'm not going to hide in here, because she's trying to hide at one point in the movie. And she's just like, no, not again.
It's a throwback they had to. Right?
Yeah. It was pretty good. It was a good joke at the time. Yeah.
No, but you see, like you made it thing too, right? When he breaks the thing and all that, right? Okay, why couldn't he just kick down the door with this superhuman strength that he has? Could take bullet shots.
The door was impossibly strong. It's fucking.
We're going to get to what the
Jack Nicholson uses an
Okay.
axe. He's human, right? Like, so he had to use an axe to say, "Here's Johnny." He couldn't just kick in the door like that.
It was very scary and effective to me, that scene. I think that's probably the best scene of the movie, honestly, other than like I said, like the mental war one. That's actually because he's like in hot pursuit and you think she's done for in that moment. Like that's probably, I think, the scariest moment of the movie, if you want to call it that. I would say it's that one. And then the other,
they pulled off his mask too, right? Because they forget
that part scared me more than any other part of the movie.
Yeah, because it actually makes you see that he's human and he's angry. Like he was fucking angry. The way he
also his eye looks deformed because she just stabbed him in it, and it's like halfway shut, and he kind of looks like almost like Sloth or something from the Goonies. Like he looks like messed up, right? Like with that eye, like you have it like it's like halfway open and weird looking, like he looks deformed.
That was the most unsettling part of the whole movie to me, was when she pulled his mask off for that very brief moment.
It's the only time in the originals that you actually see him without his mask too, is that scene.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. There's a lot. I don't think there was any really, unless he's got the other ones in not the original series, but in the newer ones, I don't know if he ever takes off his mask, right?
He does. There's moments
about all of them that's like these guys that the masks, they don't really take them off, right?
Right. And I think it loses something, but that's like one of those like urban legends where if you never saw the original film when you were younger, because I'll tell you right now, like the big film of Halloween for me at my age was Halloween H2O. That was the first one where Jamie Lee Curtis comes back. It's like 1997 or 8 or something. I forgot the year, but it's in the 90s. So we were teenagers going to watch that one, or like mid-teens or whatever, like 11, 12 years old when that movie came out. So that was, for me, the big Halloween movie was Halloween H2O. And in that movie, there's all these references to this movie because that's 20 years later, hence the H2O. That's what it kept, like H is Halloween, obviously 20 years later. So that's the whole idea behind that movie, is like there is a bunch of callback references to that kind of stuff. Also, like at that point, people didn't know if you ever saw his face. So if people had watched that movie and they never seen it in that movie, if they had never seen the original, they wouldn't have known. It was like an urban legend, man. Oh yeah, I heard in this movie you see his face. Like it was like one of those things, like amongst kids that were watching those movies that hadn't seen the original, was that, oh yeah, what does he look like? Like it was like a whole thing, you know what I mean? So that was a thing too. But Halloween H2O was the big one for me, which I failed to mention, but that's kind of what reignited my, let's say, or started my love for these movies, because that hit at the right time, and then it kind of made me go back and check out all the other movies, you know what I mean? So yeah. And then other than that, the only other scene I have is the, the one where he's creeping outside the school and him in the car and creeping behind the bush, like that whole kind of moment of him following the schoolgirls, stopping the car and then driving ahead and then ending up being behind the bush, like that. Those moments for me are kind of fun too. But and the Loomis parts,
Totally.
his speech, the Loomis parts are fun too. Like when he tells his speech to the when they're hiding inside of Michael's house, and he's telling the cop about, I met him I worked with him for 8 years, and then 7 more years I gave up on him, and there's no point, blah 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 blah.
There's like, you're gonna need more than fancy words to convince me to keep hiding in these bushes,
right? More fancy talk. Yeah, that was that's getting into quote territory. So let's
true.
Let's move over that. We're done with scenes now. So could you
that
want to
was
start us off?
was the only bit I wrote down was that bit when him and the fucking sheriff are doing their little banter in the bushes.
You got it? You got the lines, or
That's what I wrote, but hold on. I had it in front of me a second ago. Yeah, when the sheriff's like, I have a feeling you're way off on this, and Loomis says you have the wrong feeling. That also made me laugh really hard. And he said, you're not doing very much to prove me wrong. Well, what more do you need? Well, it's going to take a lot more than fancy talk to keep me up all night crawling around in these bushes. And then he said, I've watched him for 15 years, sitting in a room, staring at a wall, not seeing the wall, looking past the wall, looking at this night, inhumanly patient, waiting for some secret silent alarm to trigger him off. Death has come to your little town, Sheriff. You can either ignore it or you can help me stop it. More fancy talk.
I'm so glad that you wrote down that rant, because I wrote down that rant, but I didn't write the whole thing out. But that's the perfect example of, because he comes on so strongly in these films. Like, he literally tells them point blank, though, this is a big problem, Sheriff. More fancy talk. Like, they know
Oh my God, it's fucking city slicker. Yeah.
That is the most ridiculous part about these movies. This man is like, they're going to start seeing him on every corner. Don't tell anybody. They're going to start seeing him all over the place. Like, it was like, maybe you should tell your daughter you are the sheriff. Like, your daughter, maybe you should be like, maybe you should stay in tonight. There's a mass murderer, well, not murderer yet, but there's a crazy person. Like,
it was kind of a really unhinged thing too for the fucking doctor to be like, don't tell anyone. Just keep your eyes open. I was like, wait a minute.
It's like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is he, the sheriff? That's the fucking thing.
But that's what makes it so great, because he comes on so strongly that I almost get why people just don't take him seriously to a certain point. They're like, yeah, whatever, Dr. Loomis. But he's like, you don't understand. No one's listening to me. Like, no. And that's like the narrative throughout all the movies. Almost. Like, because he says, because you're a raving lunatic. Like, no one's listening to you, because you come and you just descend on this town that's never heard of you before, and you're like, yes, this man is going to come tonight and kill a bunch of people, and they're like, yeah, whatever, Loomis.
Okay, crazy doctor working at the psycho ward.
Bro, he warns them. He warns them, though. So one of my quotes, most of them are Loomis ones.
The medicine that he's giving them, that's why. He knows the fucking pills he's been probably giving them all his life. That's why.
One of my quotes, I'm guessing you can tell they're probably, most of them are Loomis ones, of course. It's when he takes the car at the start. That's that first scene when for the mental hospital, where he takes the car. He goes off because he's trying to like see what's going on, and then he takes the car from the nurse, and she kind of like rolls out on the grass, and she's like on the side, and Loomis comes running over. He's like, "Are you all right? He's gone. He's gone from here. The evil is gone." He just starts yelling.
Man, like some fucking crazy psychotic doctor, man. So he's screaming at the top of his fucking lungs.
The evil is gone.
Loomis.
Because he's like, "Are you okay? He's gone. He's gone from here." and then another quote I wrote down. He's like, "I told everybody. Nobody listened." He literally yells that. And then there's a scene with him. I'm glad they stuck this in, though, because it's the only time they reference it. He says to the cop when he first goes to the town, he's like, "For goodness sake, he can't drive a car." He's like, "He was doing pretty well last night. Maybe someone around here gave him lessons." He just yells at him.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love Loomis. Again, the way he goes off, man, he's my favorite. How about you, JT? What do you got?
He has the best one-liners. I mean, when Laurie goes up to him and says, "It was the boogeyman," and he looks at her and goes, "As a matter of fact, it was."
Yeah.
This one time she kind of agreed with him, right? After all the time, like he's been fucking. He's been calling him it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right, because the nurse said too in that quote, if you refer in the beginning, don't you think you should be referring to him as to Michael as a him and not a it? And he goes, "If that's what you think,"
yeah,
right. And she says, "If you say so, sorry," because they had to bring him to court, right? And it was all the fucking drugs they had to give him. So, because he said he'll be lucky if he can even stand up. Right?
I also like when he's creeping outside of Michael Myers' house and the kids go there on Halloween and he's like, "Hey, Lottie, get your ass away from there." He's like hiding behind the bush.
I pictured you, dude. I pictured you doing that.
But then Loomis, he like chuckles to himself because he's like giving the kids a scare on Halloween night. He's like, and he turns around and the sheriff sneaks up.
Scares
Like,
the shit out of him. Yeah.
"Hey, Lottie, get your ass away from there." He's all like impressed by himself. He's like, "Oh,
Oh, it's Halloween.
My
That's
God.
what the cop says to Laurie too. He goes, "It's Halloween. Everybody's entitled to. Everyone's entitled to one good scare."
yeah." He's like, "Excuse." That's really like he's creepy. Jay's like, "Excuse me, Laurie," when he like bumps into her. Like, it's Halloween. I guess everyone is entitled to one good scare. I had that written down too, but he like creeps on her. That cop. He's like, "Hey, Laurie."
If you don't, it's your funeral. He has that one. If you don't, it's your funeral. He's talking to the sheriff on the phone.
I also like the banter of her stupid friends when they're all walking, and that one girl's like, "Who needs books anyways? I leave all my books at school. My science book, my this book, my that book." And she's just like saying, like, because she's like the ditzy one of the group, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, "Hey, isn't that Devon Grant?" And it's like he's creeping by in the car. And then Laurie's like, "No, I don't think that is."
Speed kills.
Yeah, "Hey, jerk, speed kills." And then it like, stops the car. But like, what is wrong with this person? Isn't that Devon Grant? He's cute, and he's like rolling by. Michael Myers. Oh,
I don't know why they didn't call in the license plates, man.
okay,
Like-
we're gonna get to what the F moments here now, okay? Because yeah, I think that's all for quotes, unless you have anything else. I'm so glad that Julie captured that moment though, because I just wrote down, he looked at the wall, he looked past the wall. It's like, all right. I watched him for 15 years. You don't understand. No
I
one's
spent
listening.
4 hours a day with him for 8 years. Yeah, like that bit.
There's nothing there. The devil's eyes, or whatever he refers to, right? So
Mhm.
Well, them, haven't you, Michael? But not me.
he's gone. The evil is
This
gone.
is all the quotes, bro. He comes in for the quotes and the most dramatic scene.
Yeah.
Besides the screen getting
If we
killed.
still did the overacting award, it would totally go to fucking Donald Pleasance in this movie. We scrapped that category from our old version of the show, but if we kept that, it would totally go to him. 110%. He like hams it up in this one. Okay, let's go to what the F moments. Okay, ready for this? What do I got here? I got some written down here. Okay, first off, what the hell is up with the guy that begs his sister at the start of this movie? This guy nuts in like 0.2 seconds. Like by the time the lights go out and Michael walks into the house, grabs a knife and makes his way to the front door, this dude has already banged his sister, is walking down the stairs. He's dressed. He's like, yeah, I'll see you. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And he's out the door within like a minute. This guy's in and out.
I didn't even catch that.
Is there anything wrong with that?
No, but it's like super quick. This is super quick. It's super quick. Like it's like I don't think they really took that into a I don't think they thought that the whole thing out, because this is the starting scene of the movie, because you're seeing it from his POV of him creeping around. So Michael goes in. He literally goes up into the room. You see the lights go off or something. He's about to bang his sister. And then he goes around the side. He goes and grabs the knife. And then he walks to the front door and he kind of hangs back, and you see the guy walking down the stairs at this point. So you're telling me from the time it took him to go inside, they already did the deed by then? This guy went all the way in here, and the guy's fully clothed, and she's still naked, like doing her hair, brushing her hair or whatever in the window, right? So it's just it's absurd how fast it is. Just wanted to point that out.
Pump jump, man.
Yeah.
Quick and dirty.
Ultimate cock clip blocker. Yeah, I'll tell you that right now. I mean, he is the ultimate. Like that's what I have to say about that one.
The best part too is if you listen to the guy's dialogue as he's leaving, he's like, "Oh, it's getting late. I gotta go."
So was it good or wasn't it good? That's another thing, right? Like,
oh man, but that's what I mean. It's one of those things where you watch it so many times, you latch on to these things, right? And I'll pass the what the F moment on to you in a moment here, Julie. But my next one is then is I don't care who you are. Like, why would his sister not put up any sort of a fight? She just gets stabbed repeatedly by this 6-year-old. Like, you're a 6-year-old. I'd boot this kid in the face if he stabbed me once. Once, yeah, it's your brother. You wouldn't expect that. Okay, you might get me good one time. Then I'm gonna seriously beat the shit out of this 6-year-old kid. She's like, she's getting stabbed. Like, who's doing
Dude, I
that?
mean, she gets stabbed in the chest. It's gotta hurt.
Sure, but he's like in and out stabbing her like repeatedly.
He's
Like,
superhuman. Remember, you said it.
listen, I think you put up a little bit more of a fight than just like, like run away, like do something. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care who you are, man. This kid's 6 years old. And then like he goes outside and great opening scene as they pan back and you just see the kid with the parrots, but it's so awkward because you're like, Michael, and then they just stand around looking at him as he's sitting there with his knife. It's like, what's okay, like you're gonna do something, you're just gonna stand there and stare at the kid. He's like, where's your sister? Why do you have blood on this knife? Anything?
We have questions.
Yeah.
Well, I mean that just gave me another question. It's like, how? See, that's what I mean. How at that age she was what, a teenager that he's when he was 6, right? So is it he killed her? They never really say she dies, but they kill her, right?
He kills her. Yeah, they say she dies. They say the legend. Loomis
So
says it. He
what
killed
do
his
you mean
sister when he was 6
about
years old.
they make it as Jamie's Lee Curtis's his actual sister, and that's why.
So there's another sister. They didn't so again, they didn't set it up because it wasn't supposed to be a plot point of the first film. This is just something they threw.
Yeah, because they put that other girl in front of the tombstone, right? That's why I thought maybe that had something to do with it, right?
So originally that wasn't supposed to be a thing. But then in the second movie at the end, they were like, okay, I guess we need to give this guy motivation of some, I don't know what they were thinking. I didn't look into it too much, but they're like, okay, we're going to put this plot point at the end of the second film that it's actually his sister. And what had happened was they gave this other sister up for adoption because he went to the mental ward. Okay. And then the parents, they're not around anymore, I think, at that point. So they basically gave Lori up for adoption. She's adopted, but she doesn't know that. So then at the end of the second movie, it's revealed that they hid these files away to protect her if something like this ever happened. So then she finds out that it's her brother. Loomis finds out at the end of the second movie, and then he goes to basically save her in the hospital, because when he finds that out, he's like, oh, I gotta go tell her, or I gotta go save her because she's in trouble. And like he ends up saving her at the end of the second film. Together they take him out at the end of the second movie, but that was never supposed to be part of the original storyline. They just stuck that in, and a lot of people have a big problem with that plot line. Like, that's caused a lot of issues moving forward, because then they have to explain that part of the story where, like you said, it wasn't clear that she even had another sister in the first movie. They just added it in, right? So it's almost like that Luke, I am your father moment, like twist of the end of the second film, where they're like, oh my God, it's his sister. But it's just bullshit. They just added it in like last minute. Like, so Quentin Tarantino actually, he has I've heard his audio clip on his opinion of that. He said that it ruined the franchise, that decision. He's like, the first film's perfect.
Makes
the second film ruined it, he said, because he's like, the fact that they made it his sister is ridiculous. Because from what I heard from this other podcast, they didn't think ahead back then. It's not like this is the Marvel universe where they're like, we're going to make 10 movies like this. They never thought of that, like that far ahead back then. They were like, they didn't know it was going to be a hit. And once it was a hit, they're like, well, we better make a second movie as soon as possible. So then when they did, they're like, well, let's put in this other plot point. And then the third movie, because the second movie didn't perform as good as the first movie, it isn't even about Michael Myers. They're like, we're just going to use Halloween as the franchise now and just make different types of films, like an anthology. And which, again, failed, did horribly. And then they had to come back with the fourth movie, which apparently performed well because they brought Michael Myers back in that one. But yeah, so that's how it went, right? Which is, you're right, though, they don't explain it. The Rob Zombie remake, he actually does a pretty good job of explaining that aspect of it, because now, knowing all we know, he was able to do his version of it and actually include the fact that he had another sister. When he comes out after stabbing his older sister, he's sitting on the lawn and he's holding a baby in Rob Zombie's version. Like he's holding another child. So then you're like, oh, okay, that's Laurie. So he's aware going into the mental ward that he has a sister, which there's no mention of in this movie. And it's not like Michael Myers talks, right? So
he hasn't talked for 15 years.
right. Sorry, I'm blabbing on and on, guys, but yeah.
No, but it's just, yeah, it doesn't. There's a few. There's another one that I had too. Another WTF, man. I didn't write it down. I was just thinking of it as you were talking about it. But fuck, man, I should have wrote it as I was here, sitting here.
How about
But
you,
yeah,
Julie? I know Julie has some.
Yeah.
Who fucks with a jack-o'-lantern next to the bed?
Right.
That must be the world's strongest knife to hold up Bob's body in a fucking door frame.
Oh, I got it now. Quickly before you put on the next one. Quick, before I forget it. Like how he's so precise on killing everybody, right? And he missed Jamie Lee
Sort of.
Curtis. That's why it made me
Multiple
feel like he had more like a crush on her than anything.
That's again, you're feeding into the fan theories of stuff, and moving forward with this.
So weird.
And other other people that have brought the series back have taken different angles with that. Like there's a whole aspect of it that he loved his sister and he was really just trying to come back to her in the Rob Zombie version. Like he had love for her, but he's so, you know what I mean? He's so messed up that he can only, but then there's also a sexual energy tension type of thing aspect to it as well. So yeah, that's what I mean. It's been interpreted different ways, but this is the problem. Once you make that part of the story, it kind of retextualize it. You examine everything differently as a result of that now, which is was not the intention of the movie, the first one, right? That's why it sucks that they added that on this. That the more I think about it, the more I don't like it either. Which when it comes to H2O, when that came out, that was really cool because it's like, oh, hello, Michael. Like they're on speaking terms then, like they know each other's names. And he's like, oh, it's my brother. He's back to kill me on Halloween, which that part of it's kind of cool. But like when you really start breaking it down, it's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But Julie, did you have anything else or?
How come Tommy and Lindsay weren't fucking trick-or-treating? Timmy? What the fuck was his name? The kid.
Yeah. Tommy.
Babysat.
I know, but fucking
all the girls thought they were gonna get some action that night. Even like I think they were trying to set up Jamie Lee Curtis for it with someone too at that point.
No, she was supposed to go to the prom or something.
Yeah, whatever.
But okay, so there was that. There was like who carves a pumpkin on Halloween night in the middle of the night? Where are all the kids trick-or-treating in that neighborhood? And where the fuck are everybody's parents the whole movie? Except for the sheriff.
Well, that's one thing I feel like in the 80s was more common, though. 70s, 80s, the parents were never around in those type of films. Like,
you could just let your kids go and do whatever they want, man.
I would chalk that. You're right. Where are the parents this whole time in the whole neighborhood? But when you start breaking it down again from a perspective of budget, right? Like, you got to kind of just chalk a lot of those plot holes up to that. Like, it's like we couldn't cast that many people, right? So.
I think it's also too like nowadays it's more of a you got to watch out where your kids go and there's too many people around. Back then it was a little different. I feel they're just coming out of the 60s. It was a little different of a time.
Well,
I think that's when all the creeper vans started to show up and stuff like that in the 70s. So
that's what I mean. To your point about that, though, that's again what's so brilliant about this is no one had really considered to make a movie where the guy's dressed up and he's getting away with it because it's Halloween. Like which is a concern now for folks on that holiday, or even in other films where they've addressed that. Like there's people creeping around that could be doing stuff on that night that are disguised
under the guise of costume.
Right.
I want to see if I get arrested if I just do that and stand like behind bushes on my street, just with a
uncostumed, just
please do.
No, with a Michael Myers thing on, right? Like a mask. I'll grab one. Probably Nico's probably got one in his closet still.
Jay, you get arrested walking around in your own neighborhood on a Tuesday.
Could you imagine with a whole mechanic outfit on? I was thinking, I'll go ask my mechanic if they got an extra one lying around over there, right? Because they have a bunch in the shop, right?
Yeah.
So, Could you imagine me just scaring the kids like Loomis?
That'd be great.
Just standing there creeping.
One that I have was like, how long was that car there? Loomis is creeping inside that house. The car is there
so
the whole friggin' time. He's been there for hours at this point. Then all of a sudden he just turns around and he sees the car that's been there. Like, how bad is Loomis? Like, as a detective, like,
it's the only station wagon I seen in the whole fucking thing. No, and it's the only one with a fucking circle on it with a symbol. Like, really?
All this guy is focused on is like scaring kids that go to the house. And all of a sudden he like turns around. He's like, oh, what's this car over here?
Oh, he's got to be in the neighborhood now. Like, fuck.
He's there for hours. It's daylight when he starts hanging out there. He's like, I'm just gonna hang out here to the cop. It's gonna, he'll be coming home, or that's always one of his lines. He's home, or whatever. He'll be going home, or like that's in the other films. Like he's come home. That's it. He always says that about how Michael always goes home, like after the events of everything. Like he always comes back to the house. So this guy's creeping outside, and he doesn't notice that car there. That's what that stuck out to me. And speaking of cars, let's get it. Yeah,
he goes right by. He drives right by him, like he's looking.
Yeah, he's like looking the opposite way as the car goes by in the background. That was a good shot.
Like, yeah, Michael's smart enough to do that and be creep. Like, hey, wait till he's not looking at him. You know?
Okay, and let's get to it. The car. This guy he's never driven before in his life. Okay, he's been institutionalized for 15 years. Doesn't know how to drive a car.
Hard.
Okay, jumps in the car. Okay, gets away. This is before GPS. He somehow finds his way.
Figured it out.
So I mean,
he was 6 years old. He was 6 years old when he like. You think he knows his way around? Not only that, he goes back to the town, to the cemetery, to the house. I mean, once you get into the neighborhood, yeah, maybe you'll have some recollection of stuff 15 years later. I don't know, but like, really, like this dude's just driving around. Also, how bad is this police force that this guy's just driving around?
One cop, two cops, bro, literally. But you know, that's another thing too. Maybe we don't know that part. That was something that's left out too. That leaves it up to the imagination. Like,
sure.
did he actually what's the word I'm looking for? Did he actually watch like something or see something while he was there?
Bro, they don't have the internet in 1978. I'm sorry.
No, but like read a Pearlie's map or something.
Like like a driver's manual inside of the mental ward, maybe. I don't know. Like, how is he learning to drive like this and know his way around? He's just going all over town. Like he's going to the store. He drove to the house. He knows where the parents are buried. The sister is buried. Has never been to like. How would he even know that? Like that she's buried in that cemetery. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, it's the whole thing's ridiculous of him driving around. I love it. Believe me, I absolutely love it.
Huge. You leave a huge chunk open to the imagination. They really do. They really do. In a lot of the scenes.
And also, like, anybody driving in a mask, you think they'd be getting pulled over. So it's just like driving fast, like slow driving. It's so ridiculous. That's my favorite part about this movie. That it absolutely has not aged well in any way, but it's so funny to me that he's driving around the town creeping on people. Because like you've never seen any of these people in any of these movies drive. Like Jason's not getting in a car and driving it, right?
No, he stays in one spot.
Oh man. Also, like, I like when Michael like just becomes playful all of a sudden when he throws on that ghost costume. He just throws on the glasses.
And he like staged the bodies in a really fun way also.
Any other more what the F's for you guys? Anything else? That was all mine.
I know now because of the movies that followed, but like I just didn't really understand why he was so fucking focused on this particular group of people. But now that we have the context of like this shitty plot point from the following movie being that that's his sister. Yeah.
So if that didn't exist in the first movie, the only thing that attaches his infatuation with her, let's say, is that her father, the only time you see a parent at the start of the movie, gives her the key. It's something to drop off at the Myers house because he's trying to sell it because he's a realtor. And because she does that, he's already creeping in the house because he's just escaped the mental hospital.
Ward,
So he spots her. And the
Mhm.
only other thing I could think of is he's infatuated with her because of the whole sister thing. Yeah, that's the only thing.
I thought it was more that she was just cute too, like, you know, because Jamie Lee Curtis was pretty hot back then too. I mean, if I was Michael Myers and I hadn't seen a woman in real life except in the loony bin, I'd probably be infatuated too.
Mhm.
I mean, so I get that. That was kind of weird. Did he eat the fucking dog, man?
Yeah. That's something that as the movies go on. Yeah. Well, that's why when they say, when the cop and Loomis go in there and they say, "Oh, there's a dog carcass there," and then he's like, "Oh, it could have been raccoons," and he's like, "I don't know, raccoons wouldn't really do this."
Mhm.
And, Loomis is like, "He must have got hungry or something." Like, he says some lie like that. He got right. He says some stupid lie like that. Like, I don't know if he says he must have got hungry, but he's like, Loomis already knows what's up. He's like, "Oh yes, he ate a dog." The cop's like, what? What are you talking about?
Well, think about loony bins back then. They probably fed them dog, bro. Like, seriously, man. It reminds me of like
I was gonna say the cops are so stupid though. They're like, "Oh, nothing happens around." Well, I get it. It's a small town. Nothing happens around here. Just kids doing stupid stuff. It's Halloween, getting drunk, getting high, and you don't understand.
Dead German Shepherd inside the house, and the cops like, raccoons could have done this.
but nothing happened there. But apparently, isn't that where he like? That's just, that they're at the house where he killed his fucking sister. Like, come on, there is stuff that happens at that town. You would think.
Was that a booby trap that was supposed to? Was that a booby trap that he set for them when they went there, or was that just like his happenstance thing broke the window? When they're in the room where he killed the sister and that thing smashes the window when Loomis whips out his gun, and then he's like, "Oh, I have a permit. Relax." Yeah.
I think it was just falling. I think he was scared, and it was just like he was following. Like, sorry, it just fell because it was falling apart. If you looked at the house on the outside, had to be what they said 10 years later or something, or 15. It was went from 63 to
15 years later.
Yeah, so 15. So I mean, yeah, the house is falling apart. If it's been haunted, yeah, that could have just been a spur of the moment thing. That would make me jump a little bit. I'll tell you, those are the little things that do get me jumping if I'm not focused, or if I'm too focused. Sorry. Yeah, if I'm like into it at that moment, that's something that would make me jump, right? Like
it was really funny when he pulls out the gun and then the sheriff is like, "What the fuck?" And he was like, "I have a permit for this."
Well, he's super gun happy. This Loomis, yeah.
Well, we are in the U.S. 70s, so I'm pretty sure everybody got a gun at that time, man.
All right, so that's what the F category special for this episode. Let's move on here to hot takes though. Anybody got any hot takes about this film overall? Julie, I know you always come at us with some hot takes there. You got anything for us?
None of it is detrimental necessarily. It's no, it's all kind of legacy stuff.
Okay.
All of my hot takes were in what the fuck.
Mine was, I mentioned earlier, I didn't feel like the practical effects were that good in this film. Actually, I thought they were, like, compared to something like Nightmare on Elm Street, which we talked about on this show, like they were very creative with a lot of like the special effects in that. This didn't really require it, but like I felt like even some like the shots or like even the motions of people getting stabbed and doing certain stuff in this weren't really done that well as a result. Like I didn't feel like the practical effects, even for its age, I thought it was just fine. Like I think everything else, more of the actual like the way that the film was shot and the way that it was staged and the music that was added to it, like the scenes, the way they were set up, I think that was done well. But I think the actual, like you mentioned earlier, Julie, some of the acting and some of the actual practical effects were very subpar, and you could tell, and I'm sure that's as a result of the budget constraints as well on this film. But that all being said, I feel like they did a lot with what they were given or what they had at their disposal. So I'm impressed in that sense. Not to say it's bad, but it isn't great. And my super hot take is Loomis is actually a terrible doctor. and he only helped further Michael's insanity with his own brand of descending into madness and his inability to get through to Michael in any way possible in 15 years. So that's my hot take, is that Loomis is half to blame for the reason why Michael is turned out the way that he was, as essentially. I think there may have been evil that existed, but I think Loomis is actually just not a capable doctor to get through, a capable enough doctor to get through to him. So he's halfway to blame, I think, for the way he ended up. And also, if you dealt with Loomis for 15 years, I think you would really hate people. Listen to his insane ramblings for 15 years.
My thought to tack on to your first point there is that it was really, really lacking in the sound design department. Like, none of the like stabs or anything, like the jab in the eye with the coat hanger, none of it had sounds. And it took a lot of the punch out of the actual motion. Fear. Yeah, it took a lot of the suspense out of it. So like they could have done a little bit more work to that. And then just kind of, it's not even a hot take, just like a fun thought, just on like upon the re-examine and your whole framing it as like Loomis's complete descent into madness and me rethinking the whole movie, is that it would be really funny if the whole thing was in Loomis's head. Like none of it was real. And it was all a figment of his imagination. The sheriff was right, and he was like, "You're fucking insane, and none of this is actually happening, and you're just all fucking fancy talk," and they never see him. That would have been really funny.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, that was a thought too. I mean, it's always played a thought, and that sort of, even for me, right? Like, is it just Loomis the one that's crazy, or is he really, like, because nobody besides the ones that actually get killed, nobody actually really sees them, if you think about it, in this film, except for the people that get killed and a little kid.
Well, listen, I will defend my man Loomis here in the sense that if you had to deal with this guy for that long, you'd be a little crazy too. If you really could, like, if you had to stare and work with this patient every day for 15 years like he did, and not getting through to him, you would go a little crazy. Like, and that's his profession. Like, it
would probably be like more of a what do you call it for him, like a goal for him now at this point, right? Because he's been trying so hard. I know now he just wanted to keep him institutionalized properly after he got to a certain age, but
the actor Michael McDowell, who I really like, he plays Loomis in the Rob Zombie Halloween, and I actually think he's actually a really good stand-in for Donald Pleasance, whether or not you like those films, but I think that he's really good as Loomis. And in that movie, they actually explore Loomis a little bit more as well. He actually gets a lot more involved in his history and his story with him. He actually is like a child psychologist in that version of Halloween, who actually starts working with Michael when he's still in school because he's having problems at school, like a social worker, kind of like a guidance counselor type of thing. And once that happens with Michael and he ends up in the mental ward, he transfers over and continues to work with him. So he actually knew Michael in that movie when he was some aspect of normal, as opposed to what he turns out to be. So like, it's kind of interesting the way they looked at Loomis in that movie, because he actually really does care in that movie, and you can actually see him caring. At this point, when we're introduced to Loomis in this film, he's already given up on him, which actually happens in that version of Halloween too. Like, there's a certain point where there's a scene in the Rob Zombie Halloween where he has a meeting with him, and he's like, "Michael, I'm gonna stop seeing you now. Like, we've been doing this for years. I don't feel like I'm getting through to you, and I have to step away." Like, he has a meeting with him, and like, he just he's like, "Just say something." He's like, "Say something." And like, he does it. And then he's like, "Okay, like, I'm done." And he walks away. And then of course, that's when shit goes sideways and he breaks out and all this shit happens. And then that's why he feels responsible for tracking him down. And actually, that's in the Rob Zombie Halloween, which I actually really enjoy. It has its haters, but I really enjoy the first film that he did, because it actually looks at stuff a little differently. Let's say it takes what we know from this film and is able to add on to it in a way. So,
John Carpenter's got like fucking not just writing credits, directing credits, for this one. I mean, he's got everything in, even into the music and the soundtrack, right? Like
Yeah, we
all those. Yeah, right. Except the only other song I think was "Don't Fear the Reaper" that was in that was played there. They were singing it, or it was played in the car at one point. But that's really it by Blue Oyster Cult back in the day. But other than that, it was all, just you can tell they weren't paying the money for the music type of people to do the soundtrack or nothing. They really, I'll be honest, they must have made them two alone, Deborah Hill and him must have made it just a fucking killing off this whole. Like you said, if it's only 300,000 in it, and you said the box office was, what did you say it had for the year, or well, it was in
70
theater?
million.
Yeah.
70 million.
That's a big money at that time, man.
It's the equivalent. I looked it up. It's the equivalent of 365 million today.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy. That's like a Marvel.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so then finally, after with the hot takes there, legacy. What legacy does this movie hold? Julie, I know you said you have a bit here for this. I basically just wrote down, this movie just did what it did for Halloween itself, the holiday, and the boogeyman, the idea of the boogeyman, and horror movies slashers, like both like that genre, and a franchise of the film. I think that's the legacy of this movie. Now, I mean, I feel like they've had a lot of false starts and stops along the way, where it's been some really bad movies that have come out as a result, but it all leads back to this. I mean, I don't think if there was no interest in this movie, it wouldn't exist, whatever, like you said, 50 years later at this point, right? Or whatever. So I think it's still the bare bones of the film itself, are the reason why so many other filmmakers have been inspired enough to, let's say, go and tell their own take on the story and do this. They've had all these reboots as a result, right? So so that's my legacy of this film, and John Carpenter, obviously, because like Jay said, the music is the most iconic thing about this film, probably. So, Julie,
you touched on most of the stuff that I put too. That it obviously has become this huge franchise. However good or bad it has been throughout its 13 movie run. And there was a truly iconic horror movie score or theme that came out of it. Like instantly recognizable, super simplistic, but like it has spanned generations. It was the catalyst for the entire slasher genre explosion in the 80s. Like it is what set off all of those that came after it, the Nightmare on Elm Street, the Friday the 13th stuff. And that it was responsible for, like, these tropes existed, but popularizing all of those tropes that are now so well known in slashers, like basically that the sinners are gonna die, like the drug users are gonna die, the sluts are gonna die. It's like they said in fucking Mean Girls, if you have sex, you will get pregnant and you will die. And the whole fucking like last man standing bit, like they're like the last girl bit, like that's a big trope. And the theme, the on-screen theme for the killer is something that was started by this movie too. So like when he's on screen and that his little song plays, like, and follows him in the movie, that kind of was started by this movie as well.
That's like his talk. Really, he just follows him around, his speech.
Mm-hmm.
That with me, like the nostalgia of it, just watching it, like 40 years later, man, that literally 30 years or 40 years, it's been what? No, more than that, 50, you said, right, Julie?
You're not that old, but yeah.
Yeah, I know, but 40 years or 35 years later, watching it again, you know what I mean, to try to pick it apart, looking at it as trying to be a critic,
a whole different lens.
Yeah, it's different than watching it as a scary movie, as opposed to watching it as a critic and trying to commentate on it and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But or criticize it. I mean,
yeah.
But honestly, it brings me. It just brings you back, man. It brings you back to the watching horror movies growing up, man. And I always say that about the horror movies when we do something, is because it's the nostalgia behind it. It's something that I used to do with the old man, and we used to watch, so it was good. It's something that brings back good memories. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I well said. And I think like that's honestly like why my last kind of picks now, the way I've been thinking about it is what is the movie I feel like I can bring to the show that I can say the most about it because there's a reason why I like this movie or have a history with it. Like that whole opening of the show where we kind of set it up that way. Sometimes we'll come here and we'll just be like, hey, I really think this movie's great. And let's talk about it. But then lately I've been trying to think about films where if there is a personal connection or if there is a reason why I like it or have any memories attached to it, then I feel like I'm looking for movies now that are worth the conversation for me to have, even if it's not my favorite film. If there's a conversation there, I think I can have about it based on like something that an attachment or nostalgic feeling as a result of having watched this film. That's why like it kind of, it's nice to come here and have the conversation with you guys and I have a lot of fun doing it. But like, yeah, when you got to actually analyze it and talk about it and do this kind of thing sometimes. And that's why I know Julie was hesitant not to be like, I didn't really like this movie or connect with it on that level, probably, which is fine. But that's why it's my pick though. Right. Like, that's why I think when we come and do these picks, everyone should keep that in mind, that not everyone's going to have the same feelings for the film that you might bring to the table based off of that, if that's your only criteria. Because I could sit here and pick banger picks all day of like the best regarded films of all time if I really wanted to. But is that interesting to me to talk about? Not necessarily, right? Sometimes it is, but not necessarily every time. So I think that's what I've been focusing on more for my picks for these movies, right? So
That's what I say, Julie. You know, you do you watch this movie on Halloween night, okay, while you're giving out candy. Have it in the background with the music up full blast and the screaming and all that stuff in the dark. And tell me if you get a little bit of a more, have more of appreciation from it and thinking that Michael Myers is going to come, because he's been walking back and forth behind your screen, Michael Myers, the whole time. Yeah. So, I mean, to be honest, I'd be creeped out too. Like,
You know damn well I'm gonna be on Church Street on Halloween. I'm not gonna be here fucking handing out candy.
I think that cat scares me more than Michael Myers, to be honest with you.
She is fucking squirrely. She's doing all kinds of bullshit behind me.
Creeping. It's creeping like
There's
Michael.
attacking my fucking legs earlier and shit. She's a troublemaker, dude.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But well said all around. That's good in terms of the legacy of this film. So yeah, no, I enjoyed the conversation, and obviously you can tell it's something I would have spent my whole weekend watching 13 movies in this franchise if I didn't believe in.
If you weren't invested.
I wasn't invested, right? Dedicated to
call
it.
Muscle hustle.
The hustle muscle, yeah.
Hustle
like
muscle.
I wouldn't own both of these if I wasn't a fan, right? I had these in my collection. So, anyways, okay. So, movies to pair this with. Julie, why don't you start with us with this one? You always you think outside the box for this category. What'd you give us for that?
Here's my disclaimer, because I try not to set up with my pairings with stuff that I haven't seen, because there's obvious pairings to go with this, right? But I haven't seen most of it because slashers are not my thing, right? So I'm a little bit, in the weeds here. But I was thinking about like if I frame it to myself of like scary movies that I resonated with or that actually scared me, that I liked, whatever, that was kind of the rabbit hole I was going on with my picks. Because like, yeah, there's obvious ones, but I haven't seen them and I don't want to pair stuff up with shit that I don't know. So I wrote down the Scream franchise is a good connection for me, because that's absolutely, at least in the genre.
Plus, it's about these type of movies. Scream itself is like it's a commentary on.
It's not a parody of it, but like
it's a commentary on these. It's a movie about movies, like these type of movies.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a great pick.
So the Scream franchise, that seems like it might even be in the obvious picks. But it also like the sort of, to me, because we're watching it so far out of its time, and there's stuff that you notice that's funny about it. Like it's kind of got a little bit of the campy vibe, a little bit, But again, that might just because it's so far out of its era now that we're watching it today. So like Scary Movie also comes to mind for me, just like the whole parody genre of that. Like that felt like a connection for me, and I've also seen all of those and I love those movies. And then I went back to like, okay, what were movies that I actually like saw that were in the horror genre that resonated with me? And I don't know, I feel like this one is more regarded as being a shitty movie, but I really like it and I watch it once a year, I think. The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Oh, that's a good movie. I like that movie.
I don't think it's held in very high regard, but I like it. And a movie that
like
actually
comedy too. It's very like it's very subjective, I find. Like I feel like most people can agree on like what a good drama is, but comedy and even horror films, like I find that's very subjective to somebody's humor or what they find scary or interesting about like a horror film or a psychological film. Like it seems like that wildly differs people's opinions on these type of films.
True.
Same thing, right? And I even sometimes grade a horror. Like I might think a shitty horror is maybe a 3 out of 5 stars because I'm grading it on a different scale than I would an actual really good prestige drama. You know what I mean? Like it's like I sometimes will rate shit like high in the sense that like I'm comparing it to garbage horror films, right? Like a lot of these ones.
Fair.
Right? So yeah.
Yeah, that's one that I've like is sort of I could rewatch it. Yeah, I don't know. I could just pick that one up and rewatch it anytime. That's I don't know why. That one just I saw it when I was well, I don't even know when it came out, but I saw that kind of young and it stuck with me for some reason. And then one that actually scared me and I've only seen it once and I feel like it came out like I got to look up when it came out actually now that I only saw it one time, but it actually did scare me was Jeepers Creepers.
Yep.
But I need to know what year.
Director of that film? Do you know what happened with it?
No, but you can tell me in a sec. It came out in 2001, so I would have been 9.
I like that movie a lot. Justin Long.
Yes, I was like, I remember, yeah, and yeah, I don't know if I saw it when it came out, but I would have been about 10 probably the first time I saw it, and that movie fucking freaked me out.
Unfortunately, he's another one of those directors that's like been known for like I think
molesting people.
Yeah, like child stuff. Yeah. And now the movie apparently hasn't aged well because now people look at some of the characteristics of the Jeepers Creepers guy and how he lures after young children, like young kids, like teenagers.
Oh, it's a commentary on his life.
Well, that's what people have tried to make the connection. So if I ruined the movie for you, I apologize. But I
only watched it once, but it's
it's a great movie. I actually like Jeepers Creepers a lot. Actually, I think it's very good. Yeah.
There's another movie that scared me, but it was a little bit more in the realm of possibility. But I fuck up the name of it all the time. It was about these two guys that they get a hold of a CB radio and they're fucking with some guy on the other end. They're pretending to be girls, and then on the CB to this trucker guy, and then the trucker finds out that they're dudes and it tries to kill them. And I think it's called Joyride.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Is that starring
or The Hitcher? I fuck up whether it's The Hitcher or it's Joyride.
I think it's Joyride. I think that's starring there's a big star in that one. I think it's starring who's in that? It's somebody famous.
It's a guy from like Prison Break or something.
No, isn't it the dude from Fast and the Furious that died? Or
well, maybe was it Paul Walker? See, now there's a movie called Joyride that sucks. Okay, hold on.
Well, that's 23 comedy. I was like, what
yeah, that one sucks. No. This one's from 2001, same year as Jeepers Creepers. Yeah, it was Paul Walker. You're right.
Yeah, it's Paul Walker. Yeah.
Three young people on a road trip to Colorado. From Colorado to New Jersey. Talk to a trucker on the CB and then must escape when he turns out to be a psychopathic killer. That movie fucking scared me. Yeah, that movie fucking scared me too, and I would have seen that around the same age. So those are my pairings.
Okay, nice. I like it.
They're a little odd. They're a little out there, but
no, that's good ones. I like that. I like Jeepers Creepers a lot. Actually, I like that film a lot. It's creepy. That character. How about you, Jay? Any pairings?
You know what, man? I'm gonna go right totally opposite. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna say totally opposite. I'm gonna have a couple. Maybe I'm gonna put like different genres probably, but like I could compare. I mean, I would pair it with something that if you want to watch another sort of slasher style, with the original Friday the 13th or something like that, right? Like in the same sort of aspect and the same sort of if you want to go along the same lines, I think it might. It, if you want to see a little bit more bloodiness and killing, or you can go with the Chainsaw Massacre, the one before this, which was pretty, out there, even though all it really was screaming and running and chainsaw noises at the end of the day. I mean, there wasn't much dialogue, to be honest with you.
No.
But I don't know, man. I was thinking I would watch after this something that would freak the shit out of me, which was Pet Sematary. The original one, man. That one scared the fuck out of me. That's one of the movies that creeps me out the most, probably. I think out of all of it.
Sometimes dead is better.
Fucking because of that, I have a hard time with cats, man. At nighttime, like seeing them at night, and there's just a few things that, yeah, getting hit by a truck, like coming back to life, that kind of thing. Yeah, but also, if I want to put it in like a comedy aspect, I really kind of relate it to like, yeah, I want to relate it to like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, right?
What? That's a terrible pairing.
Hey, why not, man? You want to laugh? Hey, that's what happened after the chief broke out.
Great
Man.
movie, but like, hey, what sure
broke out and became fucking Michael Myers. Maybe
I wouldn't say that's a very uplifting film to watch after this, though. That's a pretty sad movie too.
Sad.
Like,
it's uplifting.
But his connection is to the psych ward.
Sure.
I think that's what. Yeah, I was like, okay, watch that one first, then come and watch this one, and you can see what happens if you come out of a psych ward. There you go.
It was like the two timelines. It's like if they'd kept him in the hospital, he would have been Jack Nicholson.
Yeah. Or maybe they made him Jack Nicholson, and he just didn't talk. And
just picture this: Loomis and Jack Nicholson's mental. He stared at the wall. He stared through the wall. I can't get through to this man.
It's a kid from Nurse Ratched. It's a kid from Michael Myers, a kid from Nurse Ratched, and the chief with the superhuman strength that can rip out the ground and throw it through.
There you go. The chief could have played Michael Myers.
That's what I'm trying to get at. Like, or it could have been his kid, his offspring. You never know. We don't really see his face, right? So
it all makes sense.
It all makes sense now, man. Jack Nicholson started it all, right?
For movie pairings, I put if I'm gonna go purely a Halloween based pairing, I'm gonna go, since I just watched them all, Halloween 2, of course, because it leads right into Halloween 2, and Halloween 4. I think if you watch those three, because Halloween 3 has nothing to do with the Halloween movies, you're pretty good. I don't think you need to go further than that, honestly. Like, because then you're gonna go into some disappointing films past that. So I think honestly the first 4 Halloween films are all pretty good, and then you're gonna start veering into, even though the third one has nothing to do with Michael Myers, I actually think it's a really good film, like a scary film, and a Halloween movie for that matter. So yeah, I would go with that. You could also just pair this if you're looking for Halloween films. You can do a marathon of Halloween 3, because again, it's a Halloween film that has to do with Halloween. It has nothing to do with Michael Myers, and Trick or Treat, which if you guys want to go back and watch us talk about that one, that's also a movie that we've done with Christine here on the channel on our playlist. We did Trick or Treat one year, which is a Halloween based anthology film. Yeah, great movie. We really, really enjoyed that one.
I knew that was going to be in his pairings.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And then if you want to do a pairings of all the greats, go Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street. That's another pairing right there. Is like, if you want to watch the first films of all those franchises, they're all great. All 3 of them.
Yeah, you can come on your own opinion after and see which one you like first.
Exactly.
I mean, if you've never watched them, see which kind of horror film you like more out of the 3.
And I'm going to show some love to another forgotten favorite, I think by many people, a favorite of mine. Let's go. I'm going to go a Halloween pairing with Hellraiser. Totally different type of horror film, but he's also known as one of the big slasher type of characters. But he's as somebody from hell, and and since what's his name? Michael Myers is like hell personified, like in a form of a man or whatever, the shape or whatever you want to call him. It's I think it works well because Hellraiser is another really good. The first one, also has like 10 films in the franchise, which I've seen them all. And like, honestly, like that's probably one of the most garbage franchises. There's so many bad movies in that franchise. I've seen every single one of them. I think I almost own all of them too on video, but that's got like maybe 2 or 3 good ones out of like probably like 9 films or 10 films at this point. So yeah, that one's got less hit rate even than Halloween, but I think the first one still really good. Clive Barker is the guy who wrote that, who's a writer, a horror writer. So yeah, very good stuff. The first Hellraiser. So those are my movies to pair with for this one. Anything you guys want to add in terms of things you're looking forward to watching or watched recently before we wrap up, though? And Julie, you have to
my rank of serial killers.
What's that?
My top 3 killers.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Give it up.
Of the 3 of them, of the 3 main, the main characters at that time.
I can guess. I have it in my head.
I like Jason. I do. I don't know. Maybe it's mommy issues or something like that with me. Who knows, right?
Number 1's Jason. Yeah, I knew that. Okay.
Freddy, because Freddy fucking freaks the shit out of me.
I knew it.
Right. And Michael Myers at the end, but Freddy, because Freddy changed a lot of my life when it came to doing things. When they pulled Johnny Depp through the fucking waterbed, man. Okay, awesome. I had a waterbed growing up in elementary school, and after that, I watched that movie. That bed was gone. Okay, not even joking. I'm not joking, bro. It's like
you talked about it on the show when we talked about that movie. I think you did. Yeah,
it's like me with the Child's Play, like Chucky. I had a good guy doll back in it, but it was my buddy, right? And they were similar looking. And once that movie came out, that fucking doll went into the fucking basement, into the underground. Like it was a full size. It was like the size of the Chucky doll, man. And it would sit in the crawl space, and you turn the light on in there, and he's sitting there staring at you.
Chucky was a creepy one when I was younger too. There's that scene, I think it's in the second one, where it's like that room full of toys, and he's like hiding in the dolls. That one that was stuck in my mind. That scene when I was younger, I was like, holy crap, that was a scary scene when I was young, man. And yeah,
but I always liked what they did in those ones too. They've changed the style of the Chucky and the characters of the Chucky. I mean, they literally, the TV show now has like it's robotic. The whole fucking thing is robotic now, as opposed to how they were doing it before, right? I don't even know how they did it.
My ranking is the complete opposite of yours. Mine is Michael Myers, Freddy, and Freddy's in the middle of both of ours, and then Jason last, right? That's the opposite.
I like Freddy because he has dialogue, man.
I love Freddy. I love Freddy. Yeah, Michael's above him for me, but yeah, I love Freddy still.
And I mean, that guy that played Freddy too, what's his name?
Robert Englund.
Englund, that's his name. He did it for quite a while too, man. He's always been a part of that series, right? So I mean, that was pretty cool up to about, I think, to the 5th one, I think.
Yeah, a lot of them, and then up till Wes Craven's New Nightmare or whatever. I think he did it, right? I think that was the last one that he did.
Maybe Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah. No, I mean, and that was like a beginning role for fucking like a Johnny Depp too, right? Like that first one too. That was another. Most of these horror movies too, they do actually have one like main character that comes out of it.
Yeah.
Besides the killer.
Yeah.
Right. That comes out and becomes a
final
big. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So which is pretty cool, right?
Julie, anything else? Things you're looking forward to checking out, or things you've watched this past week since last time?
I can't remember if I brought this up on the last show or not, because I can't remember what day we recorded, but I watched The Boy and the Heron finally.
No, you hadn't watched that yet. I saw it on your letterbox after we recorded last.
Okay.
What'd you think?
I like it a lot. I'm gonna rewatch it because I was sort of like, I was doing shit like I shouldn't have been doing shit while I was watching it. I needed
even if you are, it's hard to understand the concepts in that film. I've watched it 3 times maybe now, and it's hard to interpret what exactly happens, for me at least. I don't know.
It's like a concept that was conceived on LSD a little bit. But
yeah, it's out there.
It's bizarre, but that's the shit that I like with his movies. So like I gotta go back and digest it again.
Yeah, it's like in the middle of my ranking of Miyazaki's, honestly, though. It's like in the middle somewhere. It's not like my favorite. It's not my least favorite. It's like in the middle somewhere, I would say, if I had to give it. Yeah.
Pattinson completely unrecognizable in that film.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't even tell that's his voice. He put on like a totally different voice. You know, like people, voice actors that you get them for their voice. You can't even tell it's Robert Pattinson. It's weird.
Yeah. It's just a name attachment. Anyway. On my to-do list, my want to see, which I don't know if I had it on there before or not, but on the theme of Halloween stuff, Late Night with the Devil keeps coming across my dash. And I want to see that.
I watched it. Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah?
It's
What about The Strangers Part 1?
I hate those movies. Shit.
Yeah.
I just think they're overrated, personally. I think they're garbage. I don't know.
No, there's one I want to watch too as well, Killer Heat. I don't know why. That's the guy from Third Rock from the Sun, the kid. What was his fucking name? Joseph
Gordon-Levitt. Oh,
Gordon-Levitt.
everything he's in, I'll watch it.
He's actually got long hair, so Julia might,
He what?
He's got like a long wavy hair in it, so I
don't give a fuck. If he's in it, I'll watch it.
Yeah, it's a prime one. I've been looking at it. I watched it. He's an investigator of some sort. I don't know if you want to look at something like that. Just to, I don't know if it's any good. I haven't seen it yet, but that's something I'd probably want to watch in the next couple of days. See, right? But yeah, there's always stuff that I'm always looking to watch. Right? I'm actually always looking forward to watching movies because these are the ones that actually give me something. Like your pick will give me something to watch for this time, which is a good thing. And then like Nico said, I'm more into the television and stuff like that when it comes to, unless somebody pinpoints a movie that I really haven't seen anything since we watched Thing together. Megalopolis. Yeah.
All I'll say is Terrifier, and like I said, stay tuned. We might put on an impromptu episode, me and Christine talking about the Terrifier movies and the new one, number 3, which we have tickets to go see tomorrow, so I'm really looking forward to that. But other than that, that's it,
bro. Because I can't find that fucking one, the first Terrifier, bro. I cannot find.
I'll let you know. I'll let you know.
I saw it on
second part, man.
Criterion or Movie.
It's on Tubi.
Yeah,
it's on Tubi.
Yeah, but I don't like the free stuff.
Okay.
I know.
Anyways, so we're coming up to 3 hours. I think this show is supposed to we're trying to be doing these shows for 2 hours. I talked for at least 2 hours of this episode.
The more people we have on, the less time we spend. But
it's so weird. I thought this was going to be a quicker one, but I had to talk my ears off about Halloween.
Oh, I knew you were gonna. I was like, this guy dedicated all that time this weekend to watching that.
Right.
Whether it was on while he was even awake at that point.
Yeah, you watched fucking 13 movies this weekend. It's only fair.
As long as you guys aren't upset at me, because I know we're trying to keep these shorter. But I thought with 3 people we would have. But you're right. I didn't even spend that much time talking about the 13 movies. I spent more time talking about this movie, right? Which is great.
Julie's gotta go back and see and get runtime on each of our speeches. Like who had the most talking?
Who had the most airtime?
Me for sure on this one. But like I said earlier, it's my pick, so too bad.
What did I say to you prior to this, guys? I said to him during a text, I said, are we gonna get to talk about Halloween 1? Right.
The majority of the time we talked about Halloween. Yeah, we did.
It would confuse me though, but the way he did it would confuse me, and I'd probably mix up parts. You know what I mean? In that sense, yeah. So
no,
it's better that I just watched the one.
I'm a professional. Come on now. All right, Julie, why don't you tell everybody your pick? Which, if we were smart, we would have rearranged our picks and actually had Halloween come out on Halloween.
It's true.
Anyways,
it's true.
Our fault. Go ahead. What's your pick, Julie, for your episode coming up on Halloween night? It'll air, everyone. So check that out.
You know how it is, guys. I like to go a little bit against the grain. A little bit. I feel like I'm on theme still. Nico knows what I picked because we had to make sure we didn't pick the same movie because I got all bugged out about it. But I'm going on. JT's gonna love this. There's a comic book thread to this.
There is.
There is a Rob Zombie remake thread to this. I'm just finding out about, or like something that never got made.
You didn't do the new. Okay, I was about to say because there's a new movie that came out of this recently too, and
Yes,
that's not Rob
which I
Zombie,
haven't
though.
seen yet, but I probably will. I might not
Okay.
get to see it before we film, but
Okay.
we're gonna watch the original The Crow with Brandon Lee from 1994 for my pick.
Look at Jay. He's like,
Really? Really?
have you seen that, Jay?
Of course. I think everybody's seen it. I'm trying to get a good copy of the part 2 to watch, man.
So Julie,
I have it.
don't
I
know-
have them all on DVD.
No, the new one that's coming out.
I have
okay.
I have the first 3 on DVD.
So, Julie, I'm sure you know about this already because it sounds like you're a big fan, but I hope that part of your discussion will be centered on the whole curse of this film as well, right?
Oh yeah,
Okay, great. Because
there's a
that's
spooky
actually,
element to it. Come on.
absolutely. No, that's actually the most interesting thing about that movie to me is the story behind the whole thing with the Brendan Lee dying and everything else, right?
Mhm.
And really the legacy that the film has had in terms of the sequels and everything.
Not good enough, apparently. Fucking Alec Baldwin. What the hell's going on? Like, just
Alec
as far
Baldwin.
as gun safety on set is concerned, like,
Oh, well, yeah.
I was like, where are you going with this?
Yeah,
I was like, I don't think he was in the film. I watched it, but I don't think he was in the film.
I thought she was about to bust out the Glenn Ross speech for
oh yeah, I should watch that. Fuck,
coffees for closers, everyone.
that's right. So that's what
All right.
we're gonna watch
Oh.
next, and I'm gonna watch at least the first 3 just for the sake of
Nice.
of the legacy of it. And then I'm looking at now, and it looks like there was 5 movies.
Is there that many? I had no idea. I thought there was
Let me
2.
double check. No, so I have 3. Oh wait, maybe I have 4 of them. Hold on a second. 1994. Then there was a sequel in 1996, and then there was Salvation in 2000. Okay, so I have the first 4. Wicked Prayer was from 2005, and then in the 90s there was a reboot / sequel entitled The Crow 2037 that was in the works, was to be set in the future, and was going to be written and directed by Rob Zombie, but it was canceled. Second film adaptation, blah blah blah. This is okay, so this will be the 5th one, the one that's out in theaters now.
Okay, cool. All right. Well,
Um,
it's so funny though. We somehow have been picking all these like franchise films lately because like this is not a prerequisite to have to watch all them. I've been enjoying doing it, but it seems like almost every pick lately you've been picking, there's like a bunch of other movies. So I've been trying to like watch them all to give power rankings and stuff. But there's like it keeps happening. like Terrifier, even the Terrifier film that we might talk about, me and Christine. There's 3 of them right now. So I'm like, oh, I gotta talk about like Terrifier, all of them now, right?
and
So
when we
it's
did the Batman one, I did a power ranking of all the Batmans that time too.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That'll be good. Okay, The Crow. So that'll be your Halloween episode. It comes out on Halloween, October 31st. We'll be recording it before then, but that'll come out on Halloween. So check that out. And like I said, maybe something in between with Terrifier 3. So look forward to that. Checking the feed as always, like and subscribe. And thank you to Jay and Julie for sticking in here. Almost 3 hours worth of talk here today. I'm surprised we got that far. So
Horse for the content.
there you go. All right, everybody. Let me
All for
do
the ladies, right, Jay?
It's all for the ladies.
There you go. Okay. And on that creepy note, let's play the Halloween music, shall we?